Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 13th Board of Selectmen's meeting. Ed, why don't you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Once again, good evening, everybody. We're going to start with the Craft Sports and Entertainment approval for an annual entertainment license. There was a little bit of a glitch when we posted it, and it was posted for 7 o'clock. So we're going to do that first instead of the usual citizens input, and then we'll go into citizens input.
I don't think Jess will be disappointed.
Hey, Jess. Hey, Jess. 7 o'clock, it'll be done by 15:15.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm starving, so you know this works for me.
As mentioned, this is a public hearing, and I'm reading the public hearing notice. The Board of Selectmen, acting as local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 181, and Section 183A, and Chapter 136, Section 4, Chapter 141 of the Acts of 2020, Code of the Town of Foxborough, Chapter 229, and also Stadium Rules and Regulations, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, April 13th, 2021, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street. Meeting being held virtually, instructions to be provided when the Board of Selectmen meeting agenda is posted. To review the application submitted by Craft Sports and Entertainment, LLC, for the 2021 annual entertainment license to include the 2021 New England Patriots season, the 2021 New England Revolution season, and 2021 PLL lacrosse event. All events are listed and proposed for Gillette Stadium. Application for this event is on file at the town manager's office. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
All right. Jess, you're on.
Great. So Jess Enos with Craft Sports and Entertainment, here before you this evening to talk through our first universal event license. So a little bit different than what we typically come before the board for. So I'll just, if you'll allow me a couple minutes, I just want to back up and explain sort of how we got to this point. This is a universal event license versus the individual licenses that you typically see us as an organization apply for. This process has been ongoing for several years now. I know it's been brought up a couple of times at the board, at the table, just to sort of let the board know that it's something that we've been working on. This document is sort of the industry standard. This is what Fenway Park and the city of Boston use. More applicable, this is what the Xfinity Center and the town of Mansfield use. Documents like this that are overarching and then outline what your venue's plan is for the course of a year, and then you go back as an entity, and as that schedule changes, if that schedule changes, you go back and submit the events as they're added on. Obviously, things are a little bit different now with respect to event timing and everything about events because of the pandemic. So what we are doing now is we're before you this evening for 3 events that we're confident will be able to take place. But if I cannot stress enough that what we're here for is approval for these events to take place contingent upon the state's approval of events. So there's nothing that we're asking for right now that would ever supersede the governor's order or the state's mandates. You know, right now, mass gatherings in entertainment and sports are at 12%. So that's what we're hoping to open up our venue for the Revs on the 24th of April. And then we're just we'll wait and see and see how things play out over the course of the coming months. And obviously our hope is that we're at a full stadium event by the time we get to the Patriots season, but we will always be mindful and respectful of whatever the state's ordinances are. So I'm before you this evening, and I'm just asking that the Board of Selectmen consider approval of all of these licenses strictly contingent upon the state's approval. So kind of jumping into what we're asking for today, we'll start, if it's all right with you, with the Premier Lacrosse League. So you might remember we had this event at the stadium back in 2019, and we were scheduled to have the event in 2020. The only difference between this year's PLL and the PLL that we hosted back in 19 is that this is now 3 days of matches versus the 2 that we had back in 2019. Also kind of interesting, Premier Lacrosse League merged with Major League Lacrosse earlier this year. And so now there's just one league for the true professional lacrosse experience. And as those leagues merged and the players merged, the Boston Cannons are the only team from Major League Lacrosse that have translated over to the Premier Lacrosse League. So this hasn't been announced yet. It's scheduled to be announced tomorrow with tickets going on sale right away. The attendance that we had in 2019 and the attendance that was projected for ticket sales back in 2020 is still well below that 12% threshold. So there's no concern that this event sells or demands attendance anywhere close to what the state's current mandate is. The event's on June 4th, 5th, and 6th, and you can see in the event timeline, the start times vary from 7 p.m. to 4:30 to.
Jess, we lost you. Jess, we lost you.
She just froze too.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you can hear us, Jess, you also froze.
Yeah, she's off. She's off Zoom.
She's off
Yeah,
altogether.
she might have had a connection.
I think it's time for George to take over.
Oh, I can't do that, not for Jess.
But we
I
can
can
certainly.
comment, but not take over.
But we could certainly ask your committee, ask the committee what their,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, first off, I want to say that our committee was very impressed with what the town has put together. The annual licensing document. It was reviewed as the first part of our meeting, and the Assistant Chief Noonan, as well as Deputy Chief Buckley at the Fire Department, and Matthew Brennan of the Board of Health. I must say that we were very, very impressed with the scope of the broad scope of the annual license and the parameters that it had. It really does very much capsulize, the outliers of events that we have watched over the years that we've had it. So that was the first part. The second part in relation to the looking at this first license, we looked at and with the public safety input, the only issue that we had, they have a great working relationship with the stadium, and again, working with, COVID parameters that the fire department is currently working on. As a matter of fact, I believe the next day, talking with Chief Grace and Deputy Chief Noonan, they feel very comfortable that they will be able to work with the stadium in relation to the plan. The key is that that plan needs to be reviewed by, as Jess had mentioned, the Board of Health will need to, give their input in relation to the state approved plan. But we had we had comfort based on the fact that the town has the ultimate power and control in relation to whatever goes on at the stadium with this COVID-related pandemic that we're dealing with.
Thank you. Jess, do we have you back?
Yes, I think so. I apologize.
No. We lost you when you were going over the times for the PLL.
Okay, so it's 7 p.m., 4:30 p.m., and 1 p.m. These new event data sheets that you see in the application are actually pretty helpful because they're nice and streamlined now. It's a one-page document that outlines everything for you with respect to the proposed event start times, end times, permitting times for the gates, and then times in which the stadium will be vacated. And again, it aligns with what we saw in 2019, and with the addition of the extra day. So I think I can roll into the Revs application, or I don't know if you want me to pause for any questions that are PLL specific.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Any questions on PLL? Nope, we'll go into the Revs.
Perfect. So Revs, really excited. We'll start on April 24th, and it'll be our first stadium event. Worth noting that the stadium is now obviously being set up with, so that it's completely COVID compliant with social distancing, markers on where to stand, and then the seating in pods. So if seats aren't in use, they're being physically zip tied shut. And so that's the procedure that's being done in the stadium right now. If it's not already complete, it'll be ready by the 24th for the Revs. And that's also the same procedure that we're going to have in place for the PLL when that rolls around in June. So excited to have the Revs back in the building. We will be able to accommodate all of our season ticket members and still stay within that 12%. But we will open up ticket sales to the general public and again, cut them off right at that 12%. We'll start the season at 12 and hope that the state is in a situation to allow us a greater capacity as time passes. But again, nothing that we'll do will be without the express approval of the state and then pending approval of the board this evening. I think obviously a whole host of COVID changes in place so that we remain completely compliant. All of the things like our general admission areas, any setup areas that had any festival style events, none of those, we're not rolling any of those into the season yet. Our fort area, which is always the sort of the one GA space that we have in the building, will not be GA at the start of the season. But other than that, we hope to maintain a relative, as normal as possible, Revs experience for our fans throughout the year. And we'll just continue to watch the state and our mandate and see where we can start to host more people when it's legally an option. Does anybody have any Revs questions before I roll into Patriots?
Nope. Let's go to Patriots.
Into Patriots, same thing. Our request right now is for 12%, hoping that we're at a much different place by the time August rolls around. Biggest change in the Patriots season, or just in the NFL season this year, is that essentially one of our preseason games across the entire league has been flipped into a regular season game. So the Patriots season, the NFL season is not out yet. The schedule hasn't been released. They've pushed it back. Typically we see it right around the end of April, right around the draft. They've pushed it into mid-May. So it's been formatted, but the schedule itself has not been set and released. And we'll hope to see that sometime in the second or third week in May. Same procedures in place with respect to timing, but again, everything will be COVID dependent. The stadium will still be set with those zipped tied seats in the event that we don't have additional capacity. We'll be prepared to open at 12 and hope that over the course of the next few months, we have the increased capacity option.
Any questions?
Just more overall, I don't know if you want to wait or,
Yeah, go.
so just going forward to make sure I understand, if there's a new event, like let's say there's a concert, we'd get a sheet, we don't have to do a public hearing, and this would just be an action item. Is that correct?
No,
No,
No.
no, no. You could actually, what would happen is that we get notified
Okay.
that they have another event. Now, the board has an opportunity to review it and then determine if they want to hold a hearing on it.
Okay,
we have that.
You have,
Okay,
you have
okay.
the option.
just
Right,
since
but-
it's new, making sure I
Yeah,
understand
it's
how it
just,
works.
right, so in the event that, I mean, a lot of times these events are pretty straightforward, so they don't require another hearing, but if it's something that you think does require that, the board has an option to do that.
Okay. And then, just to clarify for everyone at home, because I feel like this was a little bit misunderstood maybe last year around this time, we are not giving the okay right now to, load the stadium up at full capacity or anything. We are simply issuing the license following the state guidelines. So, we're not trying to move any faster than what's there. We're moving in step and in line with what the state recommends.
Right. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody zoomed in? No one zoomed in. So I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Any further discussion? Just out of curiosity, Steph, are you online?
I'm here.
Oh, good, okay. In that case, all those in favor?
Nope, gotta do roll call
Roll
vote
call.
because she is.
Because,
Yep.
see, okay,
That's right, yeah.
so roll call vote.
Chris, yes?
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes.
Right, there you go. Awesome, Jess. And one more little side note, being a Foxborough resident and a Patriots fan, you don't get any classier than Julian Edelman's video last night about his retirement. Coming from the board and me personally, and that was a class act. And to finish it with Foxborough forever, I mean, how cool was that for Foxborough residents?
I already ordered the t-shirt and the sweatshirt.
Me and Dylan got the t-shirts. You get blue or black?
Black.
We got blue. Just a note, I don't know if anybody in the craft group's listening, but, from the town of Foxborough, thank you.
I wish that we could take some level of credit for that, but quite honestly, we saw that video when everybody else saw that video and could not have been happier with it.
Or
I
maybe-
think it's the perfect ending to a really impressive career.
Maybe
Foxborough.
forward our thank you to Julian for us.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other comments?
I just want to congratulate everybody that's worked on this process over the last 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, I
Been a
think.
while.
Yeah, it has been, and this just streamlines everything. I mean, it used to irk me that, that release and already have a concert sold out and we haven't even seen or approved it yet. So this just makes so much sense on so many levels. It's easier for the craft group to do business. It's easier for us to be comfortable with knowing that we've got a great partner like them. So I'm glad this is done. I'm glad we're approving this first one, and it should all work.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. Have a good night.
Hi,
So
guys.
no,
Thank
you
you.
need to
Vote
take,
on
you
it.
need to take the motion.
Oh, yeah, well, we got the motion.
You gotta act on it.
Ed,
Motion to approve the 2021 annual entertainment license for Craft Sports and Entertainment Group for the 2020 New England Patriots season and New England Revolution season,
2021, I'm sorry.
2021.
Okay, thank you.
New England Revolution season, the premier lacrosse league events at Gillette Stadium, subject to the terms and conditions of the license contained therein, and further subject to the conditions of the Foxborough Board of Health, that all events will be in compliance with local, state, and federal guidelines to manage the impacts related to COVID-19, and that compliance with such COVID-19 guidelines shall remain in place until such time the current state of emergency has been lifted.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes?
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
George.
Oh, yeah, thanks, George, too.
Thank you, George.
All right, citizens input, do you have anybody for citizens input? Okay, good. COVID-19 update, Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things. First of all, the numbers are up a little bit in Foxborough, though we do still remain in the yellow category. We've not converted over to the red category, and even though some of the communities south of us appear to have done that, we still remain in the yellow category. As of right now, the cases in Foxborough are stand at 75 current cases. That's up a little bit since in the past week or so. But, you know, again, that seems to be the trend around the country right now, so we'll continue to follow that national trend as well.
Do you have that broken down in like age group? I know I've seen it on.
It does not break it down that way, Chris. We don't have it quite set up that way, but it's interesting to note that on a nationwide level, it seems to be the younger generation that's impacted the most at this point in time. So currently, the town of Foxborough is in the yellow category. This is the report that came from Matt Brennan from the Board of Health. In the yellow category, on the average verge of going into the red. The town's average daily incidence rate, as defined by the state, is moderate, or we average 31.8 cases per day per 100,000 residents over the last 14 days, which is higher. In addition, the percent positive rate is moderate at 4.34%, which is higher as well. These higher numbers have been contributed to the B117 COVID variant, which has a greater transmission rate. That's the otherwise known as the UK variant. Based on the current numbers of the health department, the health department urges all residents to continue to wear masks in public, keep 6 feet apart distance-wise, and between you and other people, and get vaccinated and stay home and tested if you show signs of COVID-19. The vaccination update. Today, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health directed all providers to immediately pause the administration of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine until federal experts have investigated its safety. This action is being taken due to the 6 cases reported to the CDC and the FDA where patients developed a severe type of blood clotting after receiving the vaccine. The FDA has reported over 6.8 million doses of the J&J vaccine being administered, and this type of reaction is very rare. The CDC will convene a meeting of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices to further review these cases. If you have received this vaccine and have concerns, please contact your primary care physician. On April 19th, 2021, all Massachusetts residents 16 years of age or older will be eligible to receive a vaccine. Residents who have not been vaccinated are urged to sign up or pre-register for a vaccine at vaccinesignup.mass.gov. Currently, the state reports a total of 4.5 million vaccinations have been administered throughout the Commonwealth. As far as reopening Massachusetts, the state is currently in step 1 of phase 4 of the Massachusetts reopening plan. And that's the latest on that front, Mr. Chairman. Again, we continue to urge everyone to use caution, and also to get vaccinated as soon as you can. Obviously, that will help trend the numbers in the right direction, and we hope that we'll be in the clear fairly soon. But thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Cleanup Foxborough Day Committee. I see the committee's already online, ready to go. AJ, you're up.
Hello, thank you everyone for having us tonight. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
All right, thank you for having us. So we got together, we've been together, and we are looking to see if we can push this until September, until COVID opens up a little, the world opens up a little bit more towards the COVID, and gives us a better opportunity to do what's best for the town, which is to pick up as much litter on the sides of the streets as possible, which, if anyone's paying attention, there is quite a bit out there as of right now. Are you guys hearing me? I feel like
Yeah. No, we can hear you great.
All right, I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
So what we were hoping for is possibly either September 11th, which is a service day, or if we thought that would be too busy in town, possibly September 18th.
My opinion, I mean, it fits perfectly with, a day of service. That's what September 11th is about.
I specifically brought you up when I said it, and I said, well, we'll run it by Chris. Chris has a big thing going on that day, and I think that he'll think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean,
because that's,
we're scaling that totally back this year, so, I mean, but that's what, we had this discussion at work today, September 11th, first and foremost, a day of service and remembrance, so, I have no issue with that date.
That's what we talked about last night. The three of us got together and, to discuss this path. And I think, pushing it to September, as AJ said, gives more people a chance to get vaccinated in town, more, hopefully some of the kids even perhaps by then will be vaccinated, be a little bit safer, maybe get greater participation. And it is perfect to do it on the National Day of Service and Remembrance, especially 20 years later. It would be a great way to, encourage people to get involved in our community. And hopefully we can do more of a group event as opposed to some kind of drive-through and, clean up your own neighborhood. Which is the point of this, but maybe it would be nice. We've been so isolated from one another as a community. We talked about this yesterday, and it would be a nice way to bring everyone together as a town again. We've missed out on so much during the course of this year. And AJ, I know you redid the slogan, and I can't remember exactly how you put it, so I don't want to misquote you.
I'd have to look. What did I say? I got it right here.
Said it well.
I did say it well. I'm sorry.
Come on,
Well,
AJ, this
AJ looks
wasn't
for
a fleeting
that. I'll just
moment
try-
of
I'll just
greatness
say-
for you, was it?
So the slogan in the past has been, this is our town, this is our time. And so I followed it up with, this is our town, this is our time, and we will come back stronger than ever.
Yeah.
And really, like we talked about last night, we've had 400 people volunteer, and we've also had like 180 people volunteer one year. And I want to get it back to the 400. And if we try to rush and do this like next month, I feel like we're going to end up with 180. And I really want 500. I want 400 or 500. I'm even considering stretching it out over a longer period of the day for people to get in their soccer games or their football games or whatever's going on that day, and really understand that like it only takes a half hour or 15 minutes to make a difference. And that's what I really think that day can be about.
Yeah, and we also, hopefully, maybe come September, as Tina mentioned, maybe we can, some of the regulations will loosen up a little bit and we'll be able to do more. I think that's a great idea. Any other comments from the board?
I wasn't sure which way the September 11th thing would go, so I think if
Yeah,
the
no,
experts are comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, back when you look back, and Tina, you probably remember, like, when I started Foxborough Never Forgets, the whole premises of that was doing community service projects throughout, and it was, clean up areas at the borough. We had people doing other stuff, and it wasn't all just necessarily cleanup. It was just geared towards service. So, to me, I mean, if you're gonna push it to September, that's the day to do it.
Didn't we plant flowers at the Ahern one year, Chris?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good project, but I think it's a perfect example for our kids in the community, especially to, and it's cleanup day is such a great day for kids to participate. I think it would be really meaningful to do it on the 11th.
Yep. I think Steph had something to
Oh,
say.
yeah, go ahead, Steph. First of all, tell us, no, we can't hear you.
I wouldn't go there, Doc.
No.
Am I on?
Try again, Steph.
Just a quick thank you to AJ, Tina, their committee. This has always been such a great day, great event, a great community event. And, thanks for doing everything you guys are doing to try to make it happen. Everything that was said, I think September is great. Chris is the pro on if September 11th would be the best date, but I thought it's great. Just a big thank you to you guys, because community really likes this day.
I also agree with the whole Julian Edelman thing, and that he's the best. So we need to make sure that September 11th's open for him, since Foxborough forever. He'll be joining us because we love you, Julian.
We should send an invite out. That would be funny if he would
Absolutely.
join us.
Especially if
Absolutely.
it's on 11, that's his number.
Yeah.
Right.
Ah, that's right.
On the 11th.
Yeah, the
That was
11th.
part of our
Yeah,
reasoning.
that's right.
September 11th, Julian Edelman Day.
And you know, speaking of, you know, Julian Edelman and Foxborough Forever and the T-shirts, you know, AJ, you know, I don't know about the other kids, but I know my kids and their friends was a source of pride wearing that Foxborough fluorescent T-shirt to school the Monday after cleanup day. Everybody loves wearing those T-shirts around town. So it'll be interesting what color you come up with on 9/11.
Well, we'll pick a good one.
Just an idea, you may want to put 11 on the shirt itself. Might be a good thing for it.
Yeah, yep.
All right, any other questions or thoughts from the board?
No,
Okay.
we don't have to vote on anything, right? Or,
We do.
okay, all right.
Vote on the day.
Yeah, that's fine.
Motion to approve Foxborough Cleanup Day for September 11th or 18th, 2021.
We'll do the 11th.
Okay, the 11th is the date.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes?
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes.
All right, great job, guys. Looking forward to the fall.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate it.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
All right. Now a lighter topic next on our agenda. All right. Given that this agenda item is now being publicly discussed for the third time this evening, I think it's important to summarize the actions taken to date, since a few things have occurred during that span of time. So everybody, please bear with me. The applicant in this case is Shoveltown Brewery, and they are proposed to do business as, and known as DBA, A Taste of Foxborough. They are proposing to create an outdoor beer garden in which they would sell their craft beer and wine and also serve a limited food menu on the site located at 25 Chestnut Street in Foxborough. The applicant presents that the intended use is consistent with the spirit and direction set forth by Governor Baker's series of executive orders that were intended to help promote outdoor dining and entertainment opportunities during the COVID-19 crisis. As such, the governor's EO provides temporary zoning and use restriction relief to help promote this type of activity throughout the Commonwealth. The proposed site is an empty parcel of land owned by Doug King Builders that is located adjacent to the Chestnut Green in Foxborough. Chestnut Green is a multi-use commercial parcel located next to residential homes and across the street from the Foxborough Public Safety Building. Initially, the applicant had proposed to do an alteration of premises application before the Board of Selectmen that had asked that the board for permission to use their farmers pourers license from their established location in Easton, Mass. As an extension of that premises for use here in Foxborough. The applicant proposed a temporary beer garden use on the property that would effectively start on Memorial Day weekend, 2021, and extend to Halloween weekend in 2021, or approximately 5 months. The applicant appeared before the Board of Selectmen during the properly posted public hearing on March 30th to begin the review process of their intended use. A healthy discussion ensued among the board members, and public comment was accepted throughout the meeting. The board had several questions that could not be answered that evening, and they then elicited the assistant of the planning board to take a closer use at the site to determine if certain changes could be proposed that would help to mitigate some identified impacts that were raised by some of the neighbors. Following the initial application meeting and upon further review and consideration by town's alcohol licensing attorney, and after close consultation with the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, the ABCC, the town's attorney opined that an extension of the farmer pourer's license could not be accomplished for this proposed use. Alternatively, the ABCC made several other suggestions on how the premises might be licensed for its intended use. One of those suggestions was to have the applicant apply to the Board of Selectmen for a series of one-day beer and wine licenses for their proposed use. A review of similar type of proposals throughout the state has revealed that this type of license is the most commonly applied for license for uses of this nature. As such, the applicant was contacted by our office that the more appropriate license application should be for a series of one-day beer and wine licenses that could be considered by the Board of Selectmen. One-day licenses are limited to 30 each year for each individual applicant, but the other managers within the organization can ask for an additional 30 one-day licenses. In this current instance, in order to meet the proposed schedule of use, the applicant would apply on 3 separate occasions to possibly achieve the 5-month goal of temporary operation. The applicant has indicated a willingness to change direction and pursue the one-day license approach. What that means tonight is that the continuation of the public hearing that occurred on March 30th is no longer needed since the application approach has now changed. At the appropriate time, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing since the application for use of the farmer's pour license is no longer before the Board of Selectmen for consideration. It is important to note that the public hearings are not required to be performed for one-day license applications. But because it is prudent to have these matters vetted publicly, this process will remain a public process where the board has the right to hear comments from the public. However, the chairman, myself, has the ability to set limits on that input, particularly where the matter has already had a public input on 2 previous occasions. On April 8th of last week, the planning board had a public meeting on the proposed use at that site. Public comment was heard and input was also received by the planning board from the applicant and from members of town staff and from members of the Board of Selectmen. The meeting lasted for approximately 2 hours and a lot of helpful information ideas were discussed. Since that meeting, the Board of Selectmen has now received updated information from the applicant, an advisory letter from the planning board, a legal opinion from town council on the use of the property for the beer garden proposal, and they have all received an advisory letter from the Board of Health. Following tonight's review and discussion by the board will consider the actions on the following items. An application from Shoveltown for 30 one-day beer and wine licenses for use at 25 Chestnut Street. Second, an application for a common victualer's license to serve food at 25 Chestnut Street. And 3, an application for a 7-day entertainment license for use at 25 Chestnut Street. And just as a note, in each of these licenses, the board has the right to conditions the license for approval. That was a lot of information. So before we go on, right now, it's important for the board to understand where we're going from this point forward. So I would open it up before we take a vote to close the public hearing. Does the board understand everything I just said so far?
Hey, Doc?
Yeah?
I don't think it matters, but do you know I was going to interrupt, but then I didn't realize to speak. Do you know that you went out of order on the agenda?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters.
I did go out of order. Doesn't matter.
But I think you should, and there was a time for this one, so I just thought maybe we should just make a note of it, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Steph. I did not notice it. I was so focused on this next portion that, but that, the warrant is more for us, and we'll do that afterwards.
Okay.
Don't forget to remind me.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just to be safe, you might want to consider, because that was identified as a 7:45 timeframe on the hearing.
And is Pat Costello joining or anyone? Or
Pat Costello is not going to join us tonight, but just in case anybody had this on their agenda to zoom in for this meeting or to attend, you might just take the warrant and just do it. It'll be a 5-minute item, and then you can start officially at 7:45. That's just a suggestion.
Okay, board okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so we're gonna back up for a second. And,
I think having the background was helpful, though, just the same.
say that again?
I think having the background is helpful up to get this point.
So on the annual town meeting warrant, at this point, the procedure is to finalize the warrant and sign off on it.
Yeah, so the board has reviewed the warrant up to now, they reviewed the budget, so now it's just a matter of signing the warrant and then posting it. But it was interesting to note during the final review of everything in the office last week, that the chairman had noted to us that, it might be a good idea to move up the two items that were considered to be petitioned articles. They're actually listed as 26 and 27 in the warrant right now. And their thought is that maybe if the board would be willing to consider this and possibly take a vote to change this, which is entirely within your realm, by the way. This is entirely within your authority. And we did review it with the town moderator, and he agreed with that. That there is it's entirely within the board's authority to change the order of the articles. The thinking here is that the only reason why those articles were placed last is because they came in very late in the process. They were literally the day before the warrant closed. So that's why they were listed last in the process. However, given the nature of the discussion that could take place, it's important that as many people in the room be there to consider the issues before the town. We all know that sometimes the meeting can run late, and sometimes the meeting the numbers start to wane, and these are important issues for the town to consider. So the chairman had suggested maybe possibility of giving the board two options. One is to approve the warrant as it has been currently been reviewed, with the order staying exactly the way it has been reviewed since day one, or two, to consider the moving of Articles 26 and 27 to right after the capital item, which is Article number 5, will then become Articles 6 and 7 respectively. So that is the issue before the board and up for consideration. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to respond.
I mean, to me, it makes sense,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have no issue.
It could be a topic of big discussion.
Yeah.
Better to do it earlier.
And you've cleared it with the moderator?
Yep.
Yeah, I called moderator Frank Spillane, and he also thought, first of all, he said it's our right to do it.
Yeah.
And second of all, he had no negative thoughts on it.
Yeah, I have no issue with it.
And those were just, as was pointed out, budgetary potential issues that would go more with the warrant and the expenditures, as opposed to showing up at the end when there are 20 people in the audience.
Right. Yeah, these are significant policy, well, one of them is a very significant policy consideration that the town should consider. And given the fact that the budget and the capital plan are going to be acted on previous to that, that's usually when most of the discussion occurs anyways.
Right.
But if it stays, if it stays in course with that, then this will be the next item up for consideration.
I'm good.
Yeah, I would say it's a good idea, just so that we keep in mind, not to set a precedent that in years past, and I don't believe the advisory committee does it anymore, but they used to post these in the paper, and just that if some people knew certain article, the number was a certain article number, that it could get confusing. So I don't believe they do that now. They used to be in the reporter. So I would just make sure that, has the advisory committee already been spoken to? So they're lined up as far as any confusion on numbers.
I've notified the
Because people
chairman
say,
about this
I'm gonna vote
possibility.
this on a certain article.
Yeah.
I would just say, it seems like it's fine for this, but just keep that in mind. And, we can't just always do that if it becomes that, the people have been told that article numbers are what they are, so there's no confusion.
So just the
That makes
response to that, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Stephanie, for pointing it out, but the warrant has not been officially posted yet, so, and it has not been advertised yet, so there wouldn't be any confusion in that regard, because it hasn't been officially been put out yet. That's why it's important to have this conversation now before it does get posted, consistent with what Stephanie's pointing out. So I think that, I agree that we don't want to do it, you wouldn't want to do it after it's been posted. I don't know if you could do it even once you post it anyways.
Okay,
And I did speak directly to the chairman of the AdCom before, and I told him this issue would be coming up for consideration tonight.
So is everybody okay with the, just changing the order and bringing the, two citizens petitions up? Because we don't have to vote on that.
No, you would just adopt version
B.
B, which is the one that includes the change in the order.
Do you have to vote on adopting version B or
Yes,
just?
I would do that officially, that way there's no question about it.
And that's just to confirm, that's the only edit, there's no changes to anything else
No.
either.
So would we have two motions, or would we roll them into one motion?
I would just say that, so the motion would be to approve, sign, and post annual town meeting warrant
B.
version B.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion?
And we're clear on I remember this came up last year, the posting process, because remember the reporter won't print it anymore, and do we feel like we're all covered there? Because I remember that being some discussion last year.
We actually went through the whole process and took input from the moderator as well as the town clerk. We solicited their input before we even got to this point, so there shouldn't be any questions about it at this point.
Can you clarify, just tell everyone what the posting process is then, so we're clear and everyone
So,
else?
so the posting process is a 14-day process, and the issue that came up last year was the fact that the town meeting actually begins on the day of the election. So therefore, the town meeting warrant has to be posted 14 days prior to the election, not just the town meeting itself. So the way it's worded here in Foxborough and in the bylaws, in the town's bylaws and warrant and charter, is that the town meeting process begins with the election and finishes with the town meeting itself.
So I guess like where will the warrant will be on the town website, the warrant will be out here, the warrant will be in the paper, where are we posting it?
And then it gets posted, but it gets signed by a constable, and then there are various locations throughout the town. I don't have those names in front of me, but
There's
it's,
like the
Library,
public building, the
public
libraries, the
Yeah.
schools.
Okay.
Those
Yeah.
various areas.
I don't think it's cost effective anymore. We decided to do it in the paper, and I don't think we do it in the paper. but-
according to the law, you can actually post it right on the website now.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So-
Just so people know where to see it if they
Yep.
want to review it.
Hey Leah, it's Katie Lang, not on video, but just here. So I have a meeting with Bob Cutler. I just said that I would have him the warrant that was signed by the selectmen before noon tomorrow, and he has the constable coming in sometime tomorrow afternoon to have it officially signed, and then it will therefore be officially posted, and we'll get it in all the necessary places, and then off to the printer.
Thank you, Katie.
Sure.
All righty.
Motion to approve, sign, and post the 2021 annual town meeting warrant B.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Chris, yes?
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Mr.
Steph. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
So moving back to the shovel town public hearing, so does the board understand the differences in the licenses?
I'm clear on it.
Okay, so I know that, Leah, at one point, you
Well,
wanted to
yeah, I
make
think
sure that this is.
it was a little confusing, and I want to make sure everyone at home, I wanted to start off and give that summary to make sure everyone at home understands
Okay.
kind of how this has changed and where we are today.
Okay. So really, the first thing I'll do is entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
If I could just make a comment before we close this hearing. This has certainly expanded beyond the breadth of what we had heard originally. The inclusion of having almost semi-permanent alcohol licenses for beer and wine, I think is not what I intended seeing a food truck operation to be. And now getting a beer and wine license, like a rolling thunder type of thing, I'm not necessarily a proponent of, because we don't know anything about how they're gonna manage both the alcohol as well as the food truck. So I'm not necessarily in favor
Well, first of all, we're closing the public hearing on the
Yes.
farmer's pool.
Yeah.
We still have a lot more discussion.
Okay,
And some of those answers, I'm sure, with Shoveltown being here, you
okay.
could ask and will be answered.
Yeah,
We
I have a
still
lot, I have a lot more questions too.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
this
just,
isn't shutting the
Okay.
conversation at all. This is just closing down the public hearing for the farmer's pool.
Okay,
and just to be clear, Doc, your intent is to hear the people that may be on at that time, not during this public hearing piece.
No, we're gonna allow them to speak a little
Okay,
later,
okay.
but we're still gonna allow them to
Okay.
speak, absolutely. So
Okay, so
it should be
you-
the top one, Ed. Yeah.
Motion to close the public hearing as it relates to the approval of a farmer's pouring license as such application is no longer before the board for consideration.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No?
Roll call.
Chris, yes?
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes.
Okay. So now, we're just gonna certainly continue on with discussion of the pop-up. Again, as a little bit of a review, the planning board met last week. There was great discussion during that planning board meeting. There was a nice, Paige, are you on? There you are. Hi, Paige. One of the big subjects was, is something like this allowed in our community? Paige, would you mind reading what you sent us a little earlier?
Are you sure? 3 pages, Doc?
Well, certainly on the first page, because that had to do with the zoning. Most of the other stuff we're going to take up on various other subjects or times.
Well, I think before we even, my memo just had to do with setting the stage from the planning board perspective. So I'm talking about the use as it respects to the town zoning. I know Bill Keegan has a letter from town council. So I want to be clear that
Yep.
we're not pretending that this is coming under that. We're just making it clear that this use would be allowed traditionally under a special permit. So with that, I just want to clarify the difference. So as you know, I'll just start. Last Thursday night, the planning board held a public discussion on the site plan for the Taste of Foxborough Shoveltown pop-up. After an extensive discussion, we offer following comments and recommendations should the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the temporary use. 1, to clarify, while the underlying zoning of the subject site is R15, the site is also located within the Chestnut Basin Overlay District, CPOD. In CPOD, a restaurant use is allowed by special permit under section 9.6.5 subsection 7 of the Code of the Town of Foxborough, chapter 275 zoning. This section reads, use is allowed by special permit. 7, retail establishments and restaurants with seating. The sale of high hazard materials or products shall be governed by the provisions noted in table 3.1. 2, the project site is located within the limits, in parentheses, is part of the old Foxborough State Hospital. The Foxborough State Hospital reuse plan limits the number of dwelling units allowed on the entire state hospital site to 203. Currently, there are 203 housing units constructed on the site. Therefore, no additional residential units will be allowed without a formal change to the reuse plan.
Okay.
Is that where we should stop?
Yeah, that's fine for now, because we're going to go into some of the other stuff, even though we might come back to that later. Then we asked, then we asked town council to weigh in, and he also sent us information about the use.
Right, so I got that in the form of an opinion email from town council just this past day. So based on my discussion this morning with Bill relative to the proposed operation of an outdoor beer garden, is my opinion that so long as all required licenses for dispensing alcoholic beverages and food have been issued by the town, the provisions of Governor Baker's attached COVID-19 order number 50, approved on September 10, 2020, relative to the expansion of outdoor table service will be applicable. Order 50 provides that notwithstanding, and emphasis is added, notwithstanding the provisions of the zoning act or any special permit, variance, or other approval thereunder, a town may approve requests for expansion of outdoor table service, including the change in description of licensed premises for the purposes of permitting outdoor alcoholic service for any type of on-premise consumption license issued by the Board of Selectmen. For purposes of this order, outdoor table service means restaurant service including food prepared on-site under food permits issued by the town, served to seat diners outside the building envelope, whether on a sidewalk, patio, deck, lawn, parking area, or other outdoor space. Per the order and in preceding order number 35, the Board of Selectmen shall establish a process for approving such requests. The process need not comply with the notice of publication requirements of General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 11. Any approval issued under Section 1 of Order Number 50 shall remain in effect until 60 days after termination of the COVID-19 state of emergency, or such early date as the town may establish in its approval of the request, whichever is sooner. Upon expiration of the Order Number 50 outdoor dining approval, any new alcoholic beverage license issued by the Selectmen thereunder shall terminate, and any amended license shall automatically revert back to its status prior to said approval. If there is any further questions, please advise.
Before we move on, is everybody comfortable with the ability to use that site, both from a planning area point of view and town council's point of view?
And almost like put it in plain English. I feel like you can regurgitate all the statutes back at me you want, but what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly, is that not under our town temporary dining orders, this is allowed on the site under the governor's relaxation on zoning, because this normally would be a special permit for a restaurant on this commercial site.
Right.
So that is my plain English summary for anyone watching or on this board or at home, as I understand it, and just making sure that we're all on the same page.
That's what I understand.
Okay.
If we weren't
Yeah,
under
no,
COVID-
this is what
Okay.
the,
That's exactly right.
If
That's
we weren't
exactly
under
right.
COVID conditions,
Right.
it would have to be a
Right.
special
Special
permit.
And it's important to note too that the latest order that was issued also provided for a 60-day window in the event that the governor removes the order. He gives 60 days for the establishment to close effectively. So it'll stay in effect for 60 days after the executive order is expunged.
Is that
So-
still order number 50, or is it?
That's order number 50, yes, that's order number 50. So, and that's the latest version of that order. So that was just done recently because obviously there was concern that anybody who did create a temporary establishment, like the ones we're talking about right now, would not suddenly be put in a position where they suddenly have to close because they have no authority to stay open if the order was lifted. So they gave a 60-day window to do that. And then the only question remains as to when the order will actually be lifted. There's lots of speculation about when that can happen, but it's fair to say that at least there's a 60-day window in which the individual or the applicant would know that they would have to close within that period of time.
and to extrapolate out, they would be included in that.
Yes, exactly right.
If the governor changed the order, they would have 60 days to close down because that ability to be open to begin with would now close.
That's exactly right.
Or move it forward in a more permanent type.
Yeah, although they could always apply for a permanent, but they'd have to go through all the appropriate steps to do so, zoning, before the planning board, a special permit request, et cetera, et cetera.
So just so that everyone's clear, who might be watching at home or here, the Farmers Poor's needed the public hearing. This, we're moving past that now. The one-day liquor license comes before this board, but does not require a public hearing, but we're, all still obviously working together to make sure, everyone is satisfied and is as happy as we can all work together.
Right.
And as public as it possibly can be.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So the next issue was a safety issue. I don't know if Chief Grace is still, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Steph.
That's okay. So a couple of things, and I'm not saying I am not for this. I just want to make it clear that I just feel like we're stretching everything as far as we can to make this happen. I don't like backing into something. There's a couple of things that I heard. I just want to make sure that we're clear. I hear calling it a restaurant. This is not a restaurant.
No.
I know some of the food is going to be prepared on site. And no offense to the Shoveltown people, I've never been there. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about your establishment in Easton. And obviously the info that came forward, you guys run a great business as far as violations or anything. So this, I would have these questions no matter who it is. So the only thing, you know, they're not a business in Foxborough yet. And so for me, this is not an expansion, okay? Their expansion would be in the town of Easton, based as how it's running now. I understand their plan is to go into the fire station project, but right now they're not an existing business in Foxborough. So I just want to make sure, and like I said, I'm not saying I'm not for it yet, but I just want to make sure that we're not just, you know, I just feel like we're bending over backwards for this project. And I'm not sure why, because they're not an existing business. Like, you know, and the governor's order talks about extending. We're not extending anything for Shoveltown right now. And so I just want to make sure we're careful. And, you know, for me, a big key might be the 30-day, because if things don't seem, you know, if we're getting more complaints from neighbors, we can come back and readdress it. I just want to make it perfectly clear that if things don't seem like they're working, I just would hate to see this business invest the money they're going to invest in by tying into sewage and water and electricity. And then us saying, well, geez, maybe the noise is too much, you know, and that can all be tweaked. But I just feel like it's, you know, it's not really what the governor's order has been about. You know, I mean, and everything that we've expanded, that we've given permission to expand, you know, we talked about expanding to a patio and expansion. This is an expansion in my mind. You know, so I just want to make that perfectly clear. Like I said, I am more than willing to listen to all the information, but, you know, Doc, as you kind of wanted us to chime in on, you know, as we go along. And I just don't know if this, for me, follows into expansion of an existing business. So I just want to make that clear.
And I think, Doc, if I may.
Yeah.
So I think, Steph, I think that gets back to kind of the mixing of concepts. So while this was talked about under temporary dining orders and an expansion of the farmer's poor's license, that's not where we are now. So, well, when we had been talking, and I agree, when we had been talking about temporary dining orders and doing this under an expansion, now this is just under a one-day permit. So that's not under expansion. So we've kind of shifted, that's kind of the original way that was proposed, temporary dining orders, expansion of farmers' pours. Under the one day, it doesn't tie into the expansion piece of the temporary dining orders. It ties into the other order.
Which I understand, but all the stuff that Paige just cited, it talked about, you know, I heard the word expansion and we're going into this order to do this. That's why. I'm clear, perfectly clear that we're done with the farmers poor, but everything that she was citing for us to give a special permit, I just heard the word expansion a lot.
Yeah, I had a lot of the same questions. That's why I think that I've kind of asked a lot of the same ones throughout the week, so.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Steph. The next thing is public, oh, I see Chief Grace is still with us. You know, he also sent us a letter. Do you want to, Chief Grace, you want to just summarize what you said about, you know, public safety, some of the public safety concerns, the parking concerns, the fact that it, noise regulations, things like that? You did pretty concisely in your letter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when asked to take a peek at this, I just want to be clear that my input is not whether I like it, whether I disagree with it. It's what the police department will enforce. So, and some of the things I talk about is the regulations for the alcohol. So as the police department, we have 37 regulations that the town has for liquor license. So that part is all in my realm. And under the current rules that the town has, I have all the enforcement options, just like any other establishment, to manage that. And secondly, safety at the scene is something that obviously would fall under the police department, as with any of the liquor establishments in town. So upon reviewing that and taking the data, I reviewed that, and initially on what's presented, is the scene itself, based on the location, is I too have all the authority to manage that in regards to traffic, points of egress, and anything that, whether the board agrees to approve this or deny that. I just want the people to understand that the town has multiple options to ensure that the scene is safe. So, and I'm open for any questions or anything like that, but that's basically the summary of it.
Yeah, just one other quick note, Chief, if you would. You did your due diligence and called over to Easton PD and came up with some results with that.
Yeah, so I did some background. Obviously, someone comes into town looking for a liquor license, and they have establishments anywhere else in the Commonwealth. More than likely, that police agency and that board would have a record of any liquor violations. And the current owners of the Shoveltown Brewery over in Easton have no violations with the town, and they have been great partners with the town of Easton. I took that the next step farther to reach out to the ABCC also and inquire, and they have nothing on file for any violations that have come forth, which is basically stating that currently their best practices are being adhered to, and they're in compliance with the liquor regulations set forth by Mass General Law and for the town of Easton. So, and I would expect that if they were to come to town, that they would adhere as well to all of ours.
Think, any questions to Chief?
Just a point. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I can't see. Oh, go ahead, Steph.
I have one. Whenever.
No, go ahead.
Chief, not to put the cart in front of the horse, but so if this goes forward, I don't even know if you've thought this far ahead. If we go forward, could you maybe at some point put on your thinking cap what this might do with a game day? As far as there's a lot of traffic in that area. That's where everything goes into the suites and the clubs, and what that might be. Not for now, because that's still ways out, and we don't really know what the capacity will be even at the stadium. But somewhere, if everything goes through tonight, could you maybe, or maybe you've already thought about it,
So Stephanie, I can tell you that the traffic plan for Gillette that I oversee is massive in regards to the Route 1 and the influx within the residents of Foxborough, because that's the absolute priority, is making sure the secondary roads are kept open. And that is a challenge based on drivers' behaviors and what they're doing with ride shares and drop-offs. So keeping the Mechanic Street, Chestnut Street route flowing, and Main Street, we've made some modifications up on the traffic plan with the state, opening up 2 lanes on Main Street and Route 1. So when cars going up onto Main Street, they don't just go into the breakdown lane. We have taken 50% of the highway now to ensure that our Main Street keeps moving and the towns of Norfolk and Foxborough are not affected. And we also have one of our traffic posts who is assigned that location, specifically Chestnut and Payson. So if we had issues with cars coming in and out, we actually have someone there who could help manage that, who's already been assigned there.
Yeah, and why I was asking is, just down the road, if if it goes tonight and everything goes good and we continue to approve 30-day licenses, that when we hit that point, we may have to consider if we would want that establishment open on a game day or not. So that's why I was asking, not to think too far ahead, but so as we progress in this, it might be something, do we want the extra, coming around that circle to get in there and get out of there? And so that's why I asked the question. Very far ahead of.
No, it's a good question. And also when you talk about hours of operation and with the game times, if it's a 1 o'clock game, what time they really would be opening beforehand, based on what their model and what their days that they've set forth here, at least initially, looking like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That would definitely probably play into that equation for sure. I mean, some of it, if it's a Thursday night, it may not be an issue per se. So traffic has been very, I'm going to say, beneficial to everybody lately because of COVID. There has been one benefit, town-wide, highway-wide. So, and we'll see. We don't know what the capacity of Gillette this year is. If we're running at, say, a 50% capacity, then more than likely, traffic issues are kind of not an issue. Because we're not going to have to.
Is the full stadium.
Yeah.
I just figured I'd bring it up now so that as we progress through this, if it's an issue, it would be something that you and your team would look at and make a decision on.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I'd like to bring up also that if we do approve this, they're going to have, Shoveltown is going to have to come back in front of us 2 other times before the end of the Halloween weekend. And, you know, we propose that those 2 other times would be a time to catch up with what's going on, any complaints maybe from, and any thoughts from the neighbors of what they've seen in the first 30 days, first 4 weeks, to reevaluate all this stuff. And certainly having a little bit of a few weeks under our belts, stuff like game day might change things a little bit. Leah, you had a comment.
Chief Grace, in regards to your letter, I think just, you know, you have the ability to mandate a detail if you see fit, and then you had made a comment about entertainment at 8 ending. Just wanted to talk about, I mean, I think the details, we don't need to necessarily address that, but just kind of pointing it out, but the entertainment piece.
So, well, I think the board has that option up here as well. So one thing that we have to distinguish between a noise complaint and a licensed event that the town licenses. For example, if Gillette Stadium is running an event and the volume is too high, they're not in violation of Mass General Law as a noise complaint. What we have is within the town and within the building inspections is to regulate that sound and measure it and make sure it's in compliance. So the town and the building inspector have all of that authority. It's not something new. We do this on almost every major event. So if the town does issue a permit and an entertainment license that does affect the neighbors beyond that level what's licensed, there is the ability by the town to end that if it's in violation.
Okay. And I think that's the case with this whole license. So I just want to get clear. I don't think anyone intends to do this, but let's say the first weekend happens and it doesn't go well. Does the town have the ability to halt it, or is it all the way through whatever's been approved with these temporary 1 days?
Well, the board retains full control over licenses, because it's strictly, it doesn't even get reviewed by the APCC. It's total town control.
Okay. So obviously that's no one's intent, but the, you know, option is there if things, you know, were to go awry.
Right. Any other questions to Chief Grace?
I do. Chief, you mentioned in your letter that the egress is fine as far as you're concerned, so you don't see any issues with the existing plan, parking inside of that footprint, entering, exiting, and/or the sidewalk on Chestnut Street, any issues?
No, so we went out, we looked at it, just, you know every single road inside and out, but then you wonder, geez, is there a crosswalk there? Is there not a crosswalk there? What is? And we kind of drive through it. I mean, maximum, I could be off the number, but around 54 cars, one way in, one way out. No other additional curb cuts where people could get confused. The traffic on a regular day on Chestnut Street is a regular road. You're not crossing over 2 lanes. So seeing that, it's probably not much different than if you go down a couple, 50 yards to the entrance to the plaza down there that has, we did our traffic study. We took up our data from the state for accidents in that area, something that is obviously huge when it comes to safety. We have that area almost has no accidents. Actually, I don't think we have any. And that whole area was redeveloped years ago when they redid the streets. They put the sidewalks in, they put the granite curbs in. So I don't have a concern about cars coming in and out of that lot.
Okay.
And the crosswalk I drove by is actually, I think, at like an ideal location, right
Yeah.
at that corner there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the only thing I
Yeah,
saw.
believe it or not, the crosswalk actually falls onto the right side of where the additional parking that the town offers. It's got 3 crosswalks on that intersection. For what it's worth, that's assuming that everybody adheres to the crosswalks. But that intersection, we see it every single day. We have people at Chestnut Green going out, employees going for lunch. We see them walking across it, and minimal complaints about people. People are pretty respectful. And plus, we do have that stop sign at the end of Payson, so it does kind of make people kind of pump the brakes a little bit because it is that T intersection.
And one of the things I would suggest to Chris is when he starts repainting crosswalks, maybe have that high on his list to paint first.
Schools are first.
Oh, second. Good
And
point.
even that little recreation complex sign at the end of Payson, that needs a repainting too. I noticed when I was going by.
Okay, any other questions to Chief?
And I'm not leaving, so I'm here.
Okay,
The door's
thanks.
open. Okay.
Next, I want to talk a little bit about the public health concerns. There was a long list of, from Matthew about issues that he saw. We got a follow-up, the same list, but most everything on that list of his concerns have been corrected or plans were submitted to him, and he feels comfortable. The only thing out of that whole list was not yet receiving the work comp or liability face sheets, but they're in our board packet, so I'm sure very easy for us to get them too.
They've already been sent.
And he's already got them. So everything on that list has been eradicated.
If anybody has any questions, Matt has joined the meeting, so he's with you as well.
And then, Matt, since you're with us and we're at that point in the meeting, any other concerns or any thoughts you'd like to add?
No, the only thing that I have to add is you're correct. The Shoveltown has worked with the health department, and conceptually we do. We approved the plan that he gave us. The only thing is now we will not issue the permit until they follow through with that plan. So everything he submitted meets our code, and we'll work with them the best that we can, and we'll keep the selectmen in the loop regarding any complaints that the health department receives.
Thank you, Matthew. And at one point you had a question about the alcohol, but did you also have a question about the food being served?
Not at all with the food.
Not the food, it's the alcohol. Okay, we'll get to that.
I had one
Yes.
food. So in that order that we have from Pat, it talks about food being prepared on site and under food permits issued by municipal authorities. So does the food have to be made on premises? Based on reading that order, it sounds like it does.
I don't know that I don't know that answer. I think the answer is, it's being proposed to be developed on site.
Right. Well, there was talk about bringing in food from other restaurants at one point, so,
There was.
just
I don't- yeah, I
since
don't-
there's been so many discussions, just where we are right now and what's being
Yeah.
proposed,
But what's before you is that they're going to prepare the food on site.
all on site, okay.
So can we get confirmation from Shoveltown on that real quick?
So, yes, the plan is for all the food to be prepared on site. That's going to be served there. I think what's getting confused about what we had proposed is that other Foxborough vendors could serve their food there. We would allow that, but they would have to get a permit through the Board of Health, which we've talked about before. If you don't want to allow that, we had planned exclusively to provide the food if necessary.
Yeah,
We thought there'd be an opportunity for other Foxborough restaurants to participate if they wanted to, under a temporary food permit that they would get from the Board of Health, which is allowed.
Okay, you okay with that, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, just an overarching comment I'll make as we go through this little by little. I don't know when the right time is to make it is, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, I've literally got pages and pages printed, and, you know, an organization of all these conditions that we're talking about today is someone, whether it's Paige or Bill or Christina, on point to make a clear, concise summary order of conditions that encompasses every group and board so that, you know, we're all on the same page. And in fairness to Shoveltown, we've talked about so much, they understand what they need to do and what they're agreeing to. You know, I think we need some kind of like written summary there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk for staff, but I'd have to say absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay, so you're on the same page. then.
Absolutely.
Right, so the way, if you, I mean, you jump ahead to the motion would be to say that they would have to be subject to all the conditions as established by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And right before those motions, we're
Yeah.
going to establish a bunch.
Yeah, so you
Tonight.
could do it tonight, or you could do it and just review it, and then, because it's gonna be, there's gonna be stuff that's gonna be talked about tonight.
Yeah.
So I think having a
Sure.
comprehensive list, we wanna make sure the list is comprehensive and
Yeah.
that it gets circulated properly.
Because Memorial Day is a ways away.
Yeah.
Right,
We still
you
have
got some
time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think I don't know that there's a rush to actually establish the exact list tonight, is what I'm saying.
Well, we could establish the list tonight, but
But
we don't have to
digest
vote.
it a little and make
Right.
sure
Make
that
sure
we've
that
got
it meets
everyone's
everything
got
that you
buy-in,
want
yeah.
on it, right.
Okay. So we good with that? So,
Quick comment,
yes,
in all fairness to Shoveltown, just for the people at home listening, when they hear like, oh, well, the Board of Health had this concern or they had that concern, that's pretty standard for any place that's gonna open up, you know,
Right.
like they come in and they discuss and, you know, I just don't want people at home to know that, you know, just to hear that there were a couple of concerns, that everything gets worked out on that. That's any establishment that would be opening up. You know, just if people aren't really familiar with the process of a new business opening up, that's pretty standard. Just kind of a little food for thought for people listening at home.
yeah, and as a follow-up, you know, some of the concern, one simple concern was having a work comp deck page and liability deck page, you know, we figured that out. So there were a number of concerns like that. Paige, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I just want to step back a little bit because I heard Steph's comments and I know Leah's concerns. I did talk today with some planners. I had my regional planning group and I was telling them a little bit about this project. And the town of Medfield actually sent over a licensing agreement that they have with a brewery that's actually going on their town property to do pop-ups there. I ended up going on, I'm just going to look at my computer while I say this because I have an email, but basically, what we've seen is under this executive order, and I confirmed that this is being done under the executive order, we're seeing pop-ups, brewery pop-ups with food going to various locations. The town of Ashland has one, and these are actually on town-owned land, which is unique, but it just speaks to the fact that there is this push and this creative, you know, for me to think about serving alcohol on town-owned land is actually even a little more surprising than it being served on land that is actually zoned, you know, for a restaurant/use. And just to back up, the reason why we call it a restaurant, Steph, is that's just how the definition of a brew pub is in Foxborough. Foxborough is very focused on making sure that alcohol is served with food. So that's just by the very nature of the definition. We don't have like a standalone bar use. So that's why we use that. And I know what you're saying, but just to be clear, that's why it's classified. But I just want to point out that from an economic development perspective, I mean, that's a hat I wear an awful lot. And like I've said before, this is a proposal that was floated last year. And I'll tell you right that I was one of the first ones to say, you know, I just don't think it passes the straight face test. We didn't have the executive orders as we do now. We didn't have the experience. Leah can attest to not so much being on point with this, but she's been seeing some of the outdoor guidelines that are coming through the state because there's all these webinars we're being invited to. So it really is a strong push. So I wanted to let you all know where this is coming from. You know, while it is outside the box, we are living in a global pandemic, you know, that comes along hopefully only every 100 years. We are outside the box. And so I understand, and I want to point out that these breweries that are going to these other towns, they're not in those towns. So again, I just want to give some assurances as well that this is a little bit different because it is, you know, on a commercial site and it gives, it's fearful, you know, to some neighbors, but this is a mixed-use site. I mean, Chestnut Green / Foxborough State Hospital was developed as a mixed use. Shea Lane residents bought in on a mixed-use project near, project that has Conrad's and whatnot. So that's the area. So I'm just pointing out why, from an economic development perspective, I personally even thought that this was something to be entertained. You all get to make the decision, and I don't envy you that. It's not easy. But from a staff perspective and from a economic development, and we have heard from many people in town, and why we think too, is the residents want a place to go. We've talked about putting it on the common, and really that's not proximate. And none of the restaurants were interested in dining on the common because they can't serve high quality food that far from their place. So this is just something that is outside the box. It's a way, Patriot Place is awesome, but it's more regional. It attracts from all over, and that's fine. This is probably more likely to be Foxborough's little neighborhood place. I could see a lot of people walking there. This is a walking community. Foxborough State Hospital was designed for this type of mixed use. And so I just want to give you all some framework as to why, from an economic development perspective, and I'm sorry for the neighbors, just as I was sorry for the neighbors of Market Street, but I also feel that sometimes we take a lot of measures to ensure there's protections in place, but sometimes, if you want to live in a neighborhood that's not going to ever have commercial use near you, you need to buy in that neighborhood. This is a mixed use area. So I just kind of wanted to set the framework as to why this passed the straight face test from an economic development perspective and a zoning perspective, from my end.
Yeah, and you know what, Paige, I'm glad that you, laid that out a little bit for me. I mean, for the people that from Shoveltown, for us, you guys just seem like you'll be great partners. So there's no doubt, I think, in anybody's mind. I think I can only speak for myself, but as a board member, we just have to make sure we do our due diligence. Based on everything we read and your business in Easton, everything's good. The chief checks you out, everything's good. So I think just as board members, we just have to make sure we do our due diligence so we make the right decision. And I don't think it has anything, for me anyhow, it doesn't matter that it's Shoveltown or anyone else. They seem to have passed the test of all the, as being a good partner in Foxborough, and their establishment in Easton has no problem. So, just to make that clear too, we just have to make sure we do our due diligence. It really, I don't want the people from Shoveltown to think that we don't want them here, or I don't want them here when I ask these tough questions. It's just to make sure we do everything that we're supposed to do before we okay it, that's all.
No, you're absolutely right, Steph. That's this whole process is doing our due diligence. But Paige, thank you for that input. That was very important at this stage of the game, that other communities are also thinking outside the box and taking the governor's directive and trying to fit it, into their particular communities. And like you said, it being done on town-owned land sort of blows my mind a little bit. Yeah. Any other comments?
Do we know if they're doing that through one day?
Oh,
Not to go to
The one-day license was the approach that was being
For
used.
Medfield?
Yeah, Medfield.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I
That
would-
makes me feel,
yeah, I would say that.
And also Norwood as well. Well, Norwood is doing a similar type of thing.
And again, sort of next, Chief talked a little bit about parking already. Does anybody have any concerns about parking? We have that, I believe it's 58 spaces, it could be 54. But don't forget, we have public parking right across the street at the old auditorium. That's only a couple of 100 feet down the road. Anybody else have any other concerns about parking before we go on?
I kind of do. Is Bill Buckley
Go ahead.
on?
I'll wait.
Yes.
So I don't have the site plan in front of me, and I apologize, I didn't bring it from the last meeting. I just want to go, my biggest concern is the safety inside of that area with cars and families and kids.
Bill?
So I just want to review, like, any of the, safety measures for a car, if somebody ought to, instead of putting it in reverse, they put it in drive. And my other biggest concern is if you're inside the venue, a kid running out into Chestnut Street. So I just want to review those safety concerns.
Bill, you're muted, but did you hear that from Chris?
I did. If you can give me sharing privileges, I'll put the site plan up.
Does he have it?
Mike's working on it right now.
And while he's working on that, I think that that's kind of what I'm getting at, even like the number of parking spaces, the number of people allowed, and like getting all that in writing. Because we have the site plan, but it's not, you know, it's a little.
Okay, yeah, you've got shared use now.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's the, here's the rendering that we've prepared for the project. And we just point out a couple of the issues that we've modified based on, you know, the meetings that we had with the selectmen and with the planning board last week. And I'm going to zoom up on here for a moment. So some of the questions that came up were along the front. What we've added in here is we've added concrete blocks at 24 by 24 by 48 all along Chestnut Street. So what that does is, you know, before we had that small barrier that really is just a visual barrier, this now actually creates a physical barrier between the area, eating area, and the back of sidewalk. And as Chief Grace pointed out, you know, this area was actually rebuilt. And I'm glad to hear the chief say that, because as I think I said at the planning board meeting, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million spent on traffic studies, traffic improvements for this entire project. So we've done that in order to make sure that a vehicle can't jump, and we'll have a barrier for two, and it also provides a barrier for anybody walking out. Could a kid go through there? Yes, you know, but you know, you got to watch your kids too. This creates a significant barrier. So this area, you know, we put around the parking area, it's one way. So you're not looking two ways when you're walking out there. There's not sidewalks. It's not going to be sidewalks. It's really no different than the parking area down the street for the recreation fields. There's no sidewalks there, people walking through this area. But this allows you to only look in one direction. You only need to look, you know, toward the one way, so that we think that is a good safety feature. We easily had the room to make it two ways, but this I think is a better way. And as far as I think the chief again talked about earlier, I'm going to bring over to the side here this plan. So this is our site. There's sidewalks on both sides of Payson Road. There's crosswalks. There are ramps to get from. This is the auditorium parking lot. There's about 300. I think it's 340. There's a couple of hundred spaces in that area. And that parking was built as part of the state hospital redevelopment in order to take overflow parking from the recreation fields, from the offices across the street, from this area. This was not thought about at that point, but the shops at Chestnut Green as well. So I think we've addressed those items. Maybe one more thing I'll mention, since I'm not sure they were here during the last meeting. We've put bumpers along all of the parking spaces facing inward toward the eating area. And we've also put some bumpers over here on the right toward the Doug King property, because there was a fear expressed that somebody might drive across the grass and try to exit on that parking lot. So we put some substantial bumpers there on those areas, again, to provide safety in order also to prevent people from doing things they shouldn't be doing.
Okay, thanks, Bill. That definitely addresses my concern. While you have that site plan up, Doc, can we just continue on some of the fence area and the berm area and just clarify, because that changed from the last meeting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my understanding is now the back towards Shea Lane is going to be a fence, and then the right side will be a shrub berm. Is that correct?
Yeah, so one of the things that came out of the planning board meeting was that we initially had 6 foot high arborvitaes along the back line here on a berm. And so there was, back and forth. And at the end of the night, the planning board decided that they would rather see a solid fence there. So this will be a 6 foot high vinyl fence, white vinyl fence along the back line. As you can see my hand going back and forth. Yep. I know it's hard to see here, but right here, there's another 6 foot high vinyl fence that goes with this house or this duplex right here. So it will tie into that there. And then we'll also continue that fence up to here. and tie it into the garage, which is the garage, the old, not administrators, the superintendent's building, which is now a multifamily. And then what we said is, this is owned by Doug King, who's also owns this property as well. So he wanted to put along here, we're gonna take these, the arborvitaes that we were gonna run along the back, and we're gonna put them along here. That will be a nicer look, in order to create a visual barrier, both for whoever's tenants in here and in this area here. So that would, what I would call would be the major change from the last meeting. I'm not sure if this was on there before, but if anybody's walked out there, we've actually marked out the limits of the parking. We marked out the limit of here, so you could physically see what's on the ground. And when the site was cleared, they just created a little berm along the back of the dirt that was there. So we decided we were going to leave that berm. That also provides additional, buffering. It's only 2 feet high, but it will provide a visual buffer for, low beams as well as that fence.
Okay, thanks.
I actually went out to Shoveltown Easton too this weekend, and their outdoor dining area is kind of like where cars would drive by, and seeing what they did along the road there, it looked really nice. There was big, they were like 4-foot long concrete things, but they had like nice flowers planted on top. And just seeing, if you're planning on using a similar type of thing, it made me feel more confident about cars being between the tables and the road there.
And also, obviously, some of the other concerns, putting up a more solid fence, would be, the trash potentially blowing into the community. The fence would stop a lot of that, maybe buffer some of the noise, and maybe some of the dust that might blow up.
And is there a fence around the dumpster? Or something?
There has to be.
Yeah, I
by
think there
law.
has to be, right, but that's I don't know if there needs to be here.
I'm pretty sure by law it has to
I
be.
saw somewhere, Bill, did you hear that question?
Yes.
I know there has to be a pad. I saw there definitely has to be a pad, but I didn't see anything about a fence around the dumpster.
Yeah, we're not showing a fence around the dumpster.
Could you point to where the dumpster's going to be for us, please, with your little hand?
Right in here.
Okay.
So it's away from
So
the
the
neighbors.
the truck come in, would be able to come in here, load up, and then go out. So we put it near the entrance. It's about as far away from any residence as you can be.
But I think we require a fence around a dumpster
Yeah,
anywhere.
Is
Are
that
we
a
not-
requirement?
That would be a Matthew.
It is a zoning requirement.
Board of Health.
Anytime you have a site plan, a dumpster is required to have it. But, again, as Paige pointed out, this isn't a site, it isn't a per se done under zoning site plan. So,
Right, but
yeah,
I think
we're
there's
not-
certain baseline things that I know we're not doing a site plan, but are typically, you would see, just like you'd see the bumpers at the parking spaces and, the fence around there,
Is Matthew still on?
I think they're saying it's a zoning thing, not a Board of Health thing, though.
Oh, I would have thought it was a Board of Health thing.
Could it be a temporary fence?
I believe it is it is not a Board of Health, and it is a building or zoning ordinance or regulation. As long as it is on a hard surface and he has it baited properly, it meets the Board of Health's code.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, maybe a temporary fence or something.
But we could add that to the list
Yeah.
to discuss. The other thing with parking that I think came up at the planning board also was maybe at that exit sign facing the people that are leaving, maybe a sign that might say parking prohibited in Shea Lane and the Chestnut Green Plaza. Public parking is across the street on Payson Road. Had you guys, Bill or anyone from Shoveltown, thought about that?
What I've done here, Mr. Chairman, is I kind of zoomed up on it. You can see over here. So we propose to have 2 signs here. On the side facing Chestnut Street, it'll be a do not enter sign to let people know it's a one-way. But on the south side, or the side facing people leaving, we propose to put a sign that says, additional parking, 10 Payson Road, take left, then right. And then over here, what we're proposing is to place a message board, and, you know, they would be like, I don't know what you'd call them. I call them breadboards, the triangles that you'd put up, temporary board, to direct people to the left as they're coming from that direction toward the Payson Road parking lot. And then we'd put one in that parking lot. And those would just be temporary. They would be moved. They would be put up during operation and removed after the end of operation. There was some discussion about putting a sign on Shea Lane. That was kind of going all over the place. I haven't completely read the memo from the planning board. I think Deputy Noonan brought up the fact that, you know, the police can't enforce it, but if the selectmen and the DPW wanted to make it a no parking area during perhaps this May to October period, then when they could put a sign up and it could be enforced. But I think he also pointed out, not his words, but mine, that there's no friends and family exception. You can't, if there's no parking on the street from 3 to 9, then there's no parking on the street from 3 to 9. So I don't really know how that went. If the board says they want us to put up signs at Shea Lane that says no shovel town parking, then we'll put up signs there.
Paige, maybe we could even, if we have some leftover wayfinding signs too, maybe at that intersection, you know, how if we have some of those extra P signs, I don't know if that muddies the branding with Uptown, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we have any extra. We
Okay.
ordered exactly what we needed, but we could certainly, we have the model and we use a local feller, so we could certainly look at, you know, ordering that. They weren't prohibitively expensive. But, you know, for a temporary use, I mean, I could see, like Bill's saying, you just have like, they put it up, you know, in the afternoon when they open, and then they take it when they leave, so.
Okay.
One idea I did have on our memo is, because there's so many well, two things I want to say is, Leah, I understand that you want to capture all this, and I totally understand why. What the planning board typically does on this is we make sure that the plan is referenced in any license or decision. Well, we do decisions, not licenses. So then that way, things like the number of parking spaces, you could still call it out, but basically it's indisputable when you have a plan, and basically everything on the plan is hereby, we have language that says, you know, is hereby incorporated into this decision. So then that plan becomes binding, all conditions on there. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I was going to suggest is, again, not sure that we could think of every nuance of the parking. And I know Chief Grace has a little bit experience in, you know, traffic management and parking management. We could probably, at the staff level, you know, if you guys agreed to it, let us do a parking management plan, or have Shoveltown make a proposal, and then, you know, we'll make sure the police and fire sign off on it, and then that would take away sort of every nuanced detail from you guys, and they could take in all the factors. It's just one idea, because sometimes you forget certain conditions and it's frustrating. This way you make sure that there's actually a well thought out plan incorporated into the decision, or into, you know, it required as a result of the decision.
Thank you, Paige. Any other
Josh, I
questions?
have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Steph.
Right. I just want to say, thanks, Bill, for taking all the different committees or boards and taking any concerns and really answering them all. I mean, obviously, Bay Colony has a great name in town, but you guys are in our community too, and you not only your business, but you guys live. Most of the people from Bay Colony live in our community, so you take this very seriously, what the concerns were. So thank you very much. The only other concern I have about parking is not what you guys have done here, just, you know, making sure that they're not taking, it has nothing to do with business wise. It's good to have competition, keeps businesses on their toes. I just don't want to see any of the parking taken away from Conrad's and My Pearl and Pizza Time and stuff over there, because the overflow goes there. So I'm not sure how we do that, but you know, that was a major concern to me about parking, just making sure those businesses don't get affected by parking issues. And the other thing is, you know, just, I'm sure the people from Shoveltown will be able to figure out, maybe with public safety, is just, you know, if this is successful, you know, 58 spots isn't really a lot, and just making sure that, you know, that it's, people are coming in safely and parking safely, but it looks like you guys have done a great job with the space you have. So, yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of those things we won't know until it opens up, and then, you know, things can be tweaked. So as far as parking, but thank you very much for the revisions.
One more thing that's not parking, but it's site plan related.
And fix some things up for us.
Thank you, Steph.
One more thing, just it's more related to Paige's planning board memo than parking, but I feel like this might be the best time for it to fit, is the site condition. So the planning board had said include some language about how the site will be left on days when not in operations. So do you think now is the appropriate time to just hear, like, will there be a closed site? You know, how will?
Great point. So maybe a representative from Shoveltown that's, you know, I'll talk.
The days you're not open, it's not like your brewery in Easton where you lock the door. You know, it's, well, Wednesday night, what does it look like up there?
Anybody from Shoveltown?
So, yeah, we would secure the site, leave the table, our plan would be to leave the tables in place, and the food trailer, which also houses the beer, would be secured. And the site would be left, you know, fully assembled. We wouldn't tear it down or anything during those days.
So just since you've made that comment, and this does go into the license, but I feel like it's come up now, you cannot leave your alcohol on the site on the days you're closed. So you cannot have a locked trailer there, from what I understand, with your alcohol. Under the 1 day, it is very clear that all alcohol must leave the premises.
Well,
unless, if you have a permit.
No, he could, but
Yeah, he could.
it's a 30-day,
It would
1 day
eat one of
license.
your 30 days,
Every
yeah.
day you have alcohol on site.
So are you clear about that, Frank?
Yeah, yes, I am. I understand that. So we would bring the beer there on Wednesday, and we take it back on Sunday.
Okay, or you could.
Whatever's left.
You'd have to bring it on
Which,
Thursday.
anyways, we would manage, we did the same thing in Brockton when we had the
You do that
pop-up
anyways.
there
You wouldn't
with
leave it there
Prova.
for-
We didn't leave the beer there. You know, we brought it there on Wednesday, and we took it back on Sunday.
Well, I think it has to be clear, Frank, that it would have to be Thursday through, because any day that it's on premises is considered a use of the property, use of the license. So you have to be careful about that.
You'd have to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got the days mixed up. I meant Thursday, yep.
Yeah,
And is
Thursday.
that allowed, that it's there overnight? Because remember, these are typically 1 day, you know, in, out.
But if it's multiple days.
No, right, I'm
in a
just
row, yeah.
making sure it's
So-
okay.
So that was okay. So as long as it's secured and it's gonna be used the next day,
Okay.
that's okay. But if you're leaving the premises and shutting it down, then you gotta take it off the site. Okay, so that would be Sunday night effectively through Thursday morning.
Thursday, yeah, sorry, I misspoke the day.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay, Leah, that was a good point. Good time to bring it up. Next thing we're going to talk about, one of the things that was brought up is noise. I think noise complaints comes under the building commissioner. But as a side note, you know, to the noise is the entertainment itself. Because that's potentially going to be the biggest noise thing. You explained real quick during planning board what your thoughts were on entertainment. Could you just review that here with the rest of the selectmen tonight?
Sure. You know, as everyone's pretty aware, the entertainers have not been able to play during COVID in bars and restaurants like they typically do. So we've been in touch with a bunch of entertainers, and this venue would suit those entertainers. But we also would envision extending the entertainment to include dance groups, maybe cheerleading groups, bands, you know, like the high school band, and so give them an opportunity to showcase some of the stuff that they haven't been able to showcase during COVID. And we want it to be a community event. We believe that brings in the community into the environment, and that's what we plan to do. So we had even thinking, outside the box, maybe a movie night, having different, entertainment like that at the site.
With you closing at 10, when would the last pour be? 9:30?
That's correct. And the licensing that we submitted, we outlined the exact times. I believe what we said was the music would end at 9, and that last call would be 9:30, and closing would be at 10.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Well, that's just, the entertainment license goes till 10, so wherever.
We can condition it.
Yeah, wherever that is that you're referencing with those times, we see the hour of operation on the one day, and then we see the hours on the 7-day, but what you're talking about that's referenced somewhere, I don't know that we have that, so I think we'd want it sounds like we'd probably want it to end sooner than what is on the 7-day license application.
So you can amend that tonight when you make your motion.
And would we be amending that to 9 or 9:30? Doc, you had an email that you said you think it should end at 9.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but Frank's now saying 9 also.
9 also, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just review again for us each night's hour of operation.
Sure. I don't have it in front of me, but I want to make sure I give the right hours. So Thursday, 3 to 10, Friday, 3 to 10, Saturday, 12 to 10, Sunday, 12 to 6, and holidays, 12 to 6. So there are a couple of holidays that fall in there. Memorial Day, which would be a Monday, which was included in the day, that date was included in the permit, would fall under the holiday time.
So 12 to 6 on those 2 days, the Sunday and holiday day. Last pour would be at 5:30 and entertainment would end at 5.
That's right, correct.
Any concern with the Thursday nights? I mean, I know, again, that we're in a commercial area, but this is not gonna have walls, and is 10 o'clock on a weeknight the right hours of operation, and is 9 o'clock right for entertainment? I think, I don't have any concerns for Friday, Saturday night. Sundays and holidays, you're proposing 6 p.m. Just curious what everyone thinks about Thursday.
I mean, I think the entertainment portion would be the loudest in it if it's over at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. I mean, I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, pretty much same with me. Ed, any thoughts on that?
I think, given the apparent from the people that have talked to me, senior citizens might have a difference of opinion, allowing it on, a Thursday, per se, they're still working on a Friday morning. But I think we might have to adapt to what.
So maybe we just say no
Regions,
entertainment on Thursdays, entertainment Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and holidays.
We could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even okay with it just maybe ending earlier, because I know, I go to bed at like 8:39. I wouldn't want, something without walls outside.
Well, I guess one of the things too, so with any outdoor patio.
Right,
I mean,
yeah, true.
What time can they stay out there till?
10, 2?
Yeah, same thing.
Okay, all right. I mean, maybe we can hear from the neighbors a little bit later, their thoughts
Yeah,
on it, if you jot it down.
Yeah, that's coming up soon. There was a question on handicap accessibility. I'm sorry, Bill, I should have brought that up when the site plan was up, but totally handicap accessible?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it will be, we have handicap parking spaces, and the gravel is compacted gravel, which is considered handicap accessible.
And the restrooms?
The restroom will have to be handicap accessible too, yes.
And while you're on the gravel, I know one of the things that came up with, one of the concerns is dust. The type of gravel I think you wrote about was limited the amount of dust, is that correct?
Yes, so what we're using is the same type of material that we would use underneath a pavement. It's like a final grading for pavement. It's very fine, it compacts very hard. And, you know, the amount of traffic here, it's just not a lot. And we've also committed to allowing any type of, there is a dust problem, it will be handled by water. So you'd wet down the areas that would be creating dust, which would only be the parking areas.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Questions? That's my list. Does anybody else have any? And we want to talk about the liquor, Ed. I forgot about that. But anybody else have any other concerns about, you know, site plan and before we move on to Ed's concern?
I think we've checked off everything except one
Go ahead.
of mine, and it's not gonna be the first time you guys have heard it, but, you know, working off of a reservation system, maybe to start, like the first weekend. You know, it might be a little tough, honestly, if it's a really nice day and people are excited about it being open and you get a bunch of people waiting. You know, I know you mentioned like the buzzers, but if you use something where, you know, people could leave the site and get, you know, like a resi system or, you know, whatever the system is that allows them to leave and maybe get a drink at Conrad's or, you know, go check out something uptown and come back. I just am reluctant to say everyone's going, you know, you're going to be seated and then you could have whoever knows how many people in queue with a buzzer on the site waiting to be seated.
So I don't know that we ever said we were going to use a buzzer. We don't use a buzzer today. We have a system that texts people, so that option is available. We use that in Easton and certainly could use it here. I think, you know, there's a reservation system for a business owner is a double-edged sword. We've seen, you know, we get a lot of walkaways from it, and that's you know, you can't capture the people. But we would not object to, at least initially, which is when typically, you know, when a new restaurant opens, there's a big buzz and a lot of people are coming to it. So certainly we wouldn't be opposed to starting with the reservation system.
Or even if you could
We'd
put your
like
name
to
in from home, you know, and see, you know, just to
Well,
kind of.
that's a little bit of a challenge. Our staff has issues with that because you have somebody who comes up and then, you know, out of nowhere comes somebody who's perceived not to have been waiting as long, and it just causes issues with the other patrons. But we could do a reservation system for sure to start, but we would like to be able, once we got the feel for how the best way to operate that site is, which is in everyone's best interest. We would, you know, want to operate that site as efficiently and effectively as possible while minimizing the impact to the neighborhood. I think, you know, we would like to have the opportunity to do that ourselves versus having a strict requirement to have a reservation system, you know, for the duration of the period. It may turn out that we will keep the reservation system if it works well, but we also would like the flexibility, you know, not to be bound by that past, say, some initial period.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in. I think we need to leave that up to them because I don't think anybody in this town has ever mandated any new establishment how they run their operation.
Right, but where it is a small site and we're talking about parking and how many people are there, it is different. You can go grab a beer and go, you know, sit in your car and kind of wait on the site. So I don't think that
But you can't sit in your car and drink in Massachusetts. That's illegal.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying we have to dictate how they're doing it. I would like to see them propose to us some type of crowd management. Again, I've brought up like when Christmas trees opened on Granite Street, literally the police had to like shut down the business because it was just chaos.
Yeah.
And that farm has been in business for, I would think, like decades. That's never happened before. But, people get excited to be outside and do something new. And, it just kind of ended up to be crowds that they then had to shut down and, kind of revise the
Well,
system.
I mean, from a capacity standpoint, there's an occupancy requirement here, so they're gonna have to close it off at some point. So I would almost, they don't know how it's gonna work, we don't know how it's gonna work. We do have a 30-day window if we go with the one-day licenses. I just don't wanna put more stuff on them, That's just my opinion too, on that.
Yeah, I see both
Yeah,
sides.
I would say, just because I work in that type of business, I'm sure the Shoveltown people will work that all out. I mean, most places will, I'm not sure exactly what the COVID rule for outside is. I know inside you have to keep people socially distanced. You can't have people, waiting in an area. And so the restaurant I work in, and I think most restaurants are doing the texting. We'll take your name and how many people can be in your party, and then you can't be hanging around. And I'm sure outside it may not be the same rule, but I'm sure that you guys will be able to work out what's best, because if you have infractions and it's brought back to our attention, then we're gonna have to deal with it. So I'm sure you guys will work that all out, how to control your crowd. The other thing, same thing, not trying to tell you how to run your business at all, but I would hope that with the limited parking, you would probably have your staff park off site. I've worked places before where if the parking is limited, especially where there's something right down the street.
Steph, just so you know, Steph, part of their plan did say that staff has to park at the auditorium.
Oh, okay, perfect. I missed it.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's your business and stuff. But I think they'll work that part out, Leah. I'm not opposed to what you're saying. I get why you're saying it, because we would hope that this place opens up and that you guys are very successful and people are lining up to come in. But I'm sure, our job is to let them figure out how to manage that control. They know that whatever the stipulations are for COVID in an outside setting, Shoveltown's gonna have to, find a way to manage that. I don't think, and you know what happens? People don't show up for reservations, or they do, or they say there's 2, and all of a sudden they say they're going to Shoveltown and they show up with 6, and the reservation with COVID has just become a nightmare, because most restaurants required it, and then people didn't show, and you were holding tables. So I think that they'll be able to work out themselves, as long as they just follow what the stipulations are for COVID and then outside, as far as where people are waiting. I think you guys will figure that out.
Thank you, Stephanie. We're going to go to Ed's concern. Ed, would you want to talk a little bit again, now that we have some time, about your concern?
We don't know if they are going to be approved to train their people that we require here in Foxboro about being tip certified so that they can have a better understanding. Now, maybe they're going to bring over full-time people, and Easton is doing the same programs that we've done and have done 2 decades, to try and reduce alcohol abuse in serving places, especially checking to make sure that people are 21 or older, having access to alcohol. And it just seems, from my perspective and the history of dealing with alcohol issues, I've never seen anything move as fast as the issuance of multiple licenses to an entity that has no history in Foxborough.
We've done it while I was on this board before.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
We have with the, especially with the 1 days on boards that, or entities that have never had anything to do with alcohol. At least from my perspective, that's what their business is. I'm assuming it's part of our regulations, their employees have to be tip certified.
Right.
But I mean, we've done 1-day licenses for people that, you know, have never even been in the alcohol business, so I'm a little.
Yeah, hey Ed, that's required. That's not just a Foxborough, something we do here in Foxborough. That's pretty much required. Most businesses, I believe that's part of how you get your break in your insurance. If your employees are not tip certified, your insurance would be through the roof. I would guess that all the employees over in Easton, whether there's going to be a carryover, whether they're coming from existing employees of Shoveltown or any new staff, I would assume that everybody is tip certified. That's not just
Mr. Chair, I was going to
Foxborough
suggest
thing.
maybe have them address that issue.
Frank, do you want to?
Yeah, all of our staff is, not only is all of our staff tip certified, but we go over checking IDs, making sure we're not over-serving people. That is something we talk about with the staff weekly. We remind them of that. It's part of our culture. We have not had an alcohol infraction. We've had stings come in from Easton, you know, with underage drinking, underage patrons trying to purchase alcohol, and we've turned them away. We have, you know, we understand that part of the business. That's how we run our business.
And Frank, are you familiar with the program here in Foxborough called Fox Cares?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that, but
so Fox
I will
Cares, Chris,
research
you want
that.
to explain it better than
Yes,
I can?
so it's a group of liquor licenses establishments. They meet, I'm not sure if it's monthly or bi-monthly. They just kind of go over best practices and stuff. I believe they meet up towards Patriot Place, maybe at Tavolino's. But we strongly suggest any new establishment coming into town kind of joins that group, and it's a good way for you guys all to just brainstorm best practices.
So it's also a good idea as a potential license holder for a permanent establishment to get an early jump on that process, Frank, because it is a good group. They actually they perform their own stings for others to establishments, so as to keep everybody honest in the process. So I think it's a really good thing. It was established a number of years ago when the town had a number of establishments that were where the town performed a sting and found a number of places that were in violation. So that group was formed, and since that time, we've had virtually no violations, which has been great to see. So it's just a good group to be part of, and it does promote best practices in the alcohol industry.
Yeah, we would be more than happy and excited to be part of that.
Yeah, we'll forward you that information. Anything else, sir?
No?
Okay. Did anybody else have any other concerns before I open it up to the residents?
One more.
Yes.
I do think we should take some kind of motion on the farmer's license, just that we're officially denying it.
Yeah, actually, I think they've officially withdrawn it, but, I mean, I would say that it's probably a fair point, Leah, to ask that the board just officially decline and take no action on their farmer's forage license.
Through a formal motion.
For the formal motion.
I'll accept a motion on a no action with
Yes.
Shoveltown's
Farmer's
Pourer's
license
license.
application.
So under discussion, the beginning of this motion said, motion to close the public hearing as it relates to the approval of a farmer's pouring license, as such application is no longer before the board for consideration.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we effectively did it at the start of this.
And also, they've withdrawn their application anyways, but it just to be safe, I mean,
I don't think it hurts.
it doesn't hurt.
It's
It doesn't hurt you to
duplicative,
do it, and so it's duplicative, but
Yeah.
it
So
doesn't
you
hurt.
okay with seconding that?
Second.
Okay. Are you okay? Did you understand that, Steph?
I sure did.
Okay. Roll call?
Chris, sure.
Leah,
Yes.
yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes?
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to, I've got a list of 4 residents of Shailene that want to speak. I would ask that hopefully it'll be something new that you might want to speak on, something we haven't discussed, something we need to discuss. Christina, is anybody on tap or ready to be?
Who's the first person on your list?
On the list is John.
John is on.
John is on. John? Are you with us?
He's getting on. Give him a second.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's wise to note that certain individuals have been heard on multiple occasions so far, and that it's probably a good idea to at least set some ground rules for this, because it's no longer a public hearing. It's also important to point out that some of these things have been said, certain things have been said repeatedly. So I think you want to get to the point where, just for the board's consideration here, that anybody who has something new that they want to bring up, that they bring it up now, as opposed to things that have already been raised.
Yeah, did you hear that, John?
Yeah, I did hear that. I mean, I'll try not to repeat things that have already been said. I did hear some conversation tonight around other towns that are apparently doing things similar to this, but upon looking at that, they are true pop-ups that are doing it on one-day events, and they're doing it over limited hours from 2 till 7 p.m. So the true pop-ups, they're not establishments that are plumbing in permanent toilets. They're not plumbing into a sewer system. They're not just, they're doing it for a pop-up. So there's a contradiction there yet again, which, I brought this up multiple times, and you keep coming back with answers. To me, there just seems to be an extraordinary amount of effort to push this through. I've seen town meetings before. I saw one town meeting where there was a poor guy who wanted to try and sell fish on North Street on Route 1. He wanted to put just a trailer there to sell fish. The poor guy got absolutely slaughtered by everyone on the town meeting. Now we're talking about an outdoor pop-up that, for whatever reason, doesn't matter what comes up, we're just riding over it. Oh, it's fine, yeah, we can do that. Oh, it's fine, we can do that. So the biggest issues for us, we've said it before, this is an outdoor venue. Whatever the zoning says, that's fine, but it's never been pitched as an outdoor venue. That's the biggest issue here. Brewery bars, as I've said before, are normally on the outskirts of town. They're not right next to the residential area. They're there for a purpose. So look at these other pop-ups that are being done on town land. They won't be right next to residential properties. And even if they are, it's a true pop-up. It's for 1 day or 2 days. It's not, over months and months. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. I do appreciate all the efforts that the board has made to listen to, everybody who lives close by. I still think you're not really considering some of those properties, because some are actually much closer than mine. They might have small children. How are they going to get to bed at night? There's music played at 9. I know you're making efforts to do things here, but it still feels like you're trying to put square pegs in round holes. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you, John. Next on my list is Kurt. Is Kurt up? Kurt?
He's coming on. Just give him a second.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. I've enjoyed the discussion. It looks like it's apparent that the project will probably go through. We had raised a number of concerns at several meetings about ways that we might mitigate some of the downsides that we see, the problem areas. And again, from the new planning and whatnot, it appears to me as if a lot of those things have been taken into account, which is very gratifying. I'm glad that you have listened to what our concerns were, and you seem to respond to them. The solid fencing is certainly a step in the right direction, along with the arborvitaes down on the east side. I think that will do a lot to address the noise issue, the parking, trash, odor, dust, and light. In terms of occupancy, the fact that the number of tables is fixed, and that there are only so many people that can sit at a table, and that will by definition probably keep the occupancy below the 180. So I think that's a step in the right direction. And the fact you're going to have a host there that ensures that people aren't just hanging around, but will come back when a table is available. In terms of rodent traps, apparently the health department has required that, and Shoveltown will go ahead and put in place what's required there. Signage, I think is a good thing. They talked about signage on Shea Lane that says that there will be no parking for Shoveltown attendees. That's a step in the right direction. And finally, the only question I had is on the dust control. I believe that Mr. Buckley mentioned something about the possibility of putting water on the compacted material as a way of keeping down the dust. And I'm wondering if there isn't something more permanent, like they do at construction sites. They put down an oil-like material, which does a very good job of reducing dust. That's simply a suggestion, something to look into. But for the most part, I think you've addressed the concerns that we've raised, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. I really do appreciate that. Richard?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Thanks for listening. As I said before, we are, nobody is opposed to Shoveltown or their business. We're just opposed to the location. We've posed a lot of questions and received really no specific answers back. And I can go through those quickly if you want, but one of the things I wanted...
I sort of have to disagree with you, Richard. I think every concern that we've heard in the last 2 meetings has been addressed. As for the site of well, go ahead.
Let me give you one specific example. We asked about noise, and specifically the noise from the refrigeration unit. The answer we got back was, well, Conrad's has one. There's a big difference between a permanent restaurant on a long-term lease who can buy an expensive piece of equipment and amortize that over the life of the lease versus somebody who's doing a pop-up venue that, you know, just from a pure business standpoint, they need to minimize their costs so they can maximize their profit. We have no problem with that, but it doesn't seem like that would be the highest quality equipment. And we're just asking, how do the noise levels compare? But we got no specific answer to that. So, you know, I asked questions about the treatment plant. Has anybody informed the owner of the treatment plant that they're going to be tying in, and what the type of storage is that will be tied into that, and what is the capacity? We talked about Chestnut Green right now is 100% fully built out. And when they designed that treatment plant, they had to design for certain capacities and loads, which theoretically have been met when this is 100% built. The fact that all the housing was built someplace else still contributes to that. So there's technically no capacity left for this site anymore because it's all
Chairman, I
been
have to
built
disagree with that
someplace
completely.
else.
I have an answer for that. That capacity, first of all, the license to tie into that is something that will be required. They made an application and the Board of Health has addressed that issue, and in fact, that will be addressed. That's a private consideration between the lot owner and the owner of the plant. The plant was actually overbuilt for size, so there's actually more than excess capacity to accommodate that need. And so with due respect to what you're suggesting, sir, is that there is no capacity. That's simply not true. There is more than enough capacity. Well, I didn't
say there was no capacity. I said we never got an answer to it. Okay. And we've requested a lot of stuff in writing. We requested the analysis by the town council as to how his interpretation is for this site. We haven't received anything in writing.
It was one of the first things we discussed.
We discussed it, but, you know, when I listened to that, there was a lot of things that I didn't hear that show up in the actual language of the state regulations and of the town's regulations. And I think one of the selectmen may have pointed that out, but, you know, you just look down the state, it says city and town may approve requests for expansion of outdoor table service. Then paragraph 5, a change in the description of the licensed premises for the purposes of permitting outdoor alcohol service as the local licensing authority may deem reasonable and proper and issue an amended license to an existing license holder. That's not what's happening here. The town has said we're allowing restaurants to resume sit-down service. General requirements, these guidelines shall not exceed the number of seats allowed by the current / original permit of the approval of restaurant use. That stuff didn't come up in what was just
Are you
explained.
referencing COVID order number 35 or the town one?
I did a little bit of both. The first was the state, and
co-
the second one was the town.
Order
So
number
if
50,
we had had the written,
order number 50, I believe, supersedes 35.
Right, and the local regulations, for that matter, as well.
that's why we asked to see something in writing so that we could make these judgments. So if we don't have the information, we can assume incorrectly or correctly what's,
Yeah,
what's
I mean,
happening.
I was hung up on that point as well, because I read every document that your neighborhood sent, and I was hung up. But if you read COVID order number 50, it's worded, and I was convinced that the COVID order number 50 supersedes 35, and this actually fits in that because of COVID order number 50, so.
But the opinion from town council is public record. It's been read
Yeah.
into record, so I don't see why we couldn't send it to them.
That's right. Well,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, with due respect, I mean, we're not individually responding to individuals' requests. I mean, we're reading stuff into
Well,
the
they could
record.
do a public records request easily.
Right, and certainly, if he wants it, we can send it to him. That's not a problem at all.
Or post it on the website. That's fine with us too.
But I think the expectation that we're gonna respond to individuals was, I think, beyond, it exceeds the expectation that we would normally do for anything. But I think that the whole purpose was to bring that to the meeting here and then read it into the record so that everyone could hear it.
Exactly.
Okay, I just want to go quickly through some of the notes that I made here. I think Paige referenced all these pop-up things, and I think John just mentioned it too. They're all one-day licenses. I mean, we can stand anything for one day. I mean, we put up with the traffic to the stadium, we put up with noise, we can hear the concerts. Nobody complains about it. We know it's gonna be there. You deal with it for one day, but this is going to be, 6-8 months worth of ongoing issues. Another issue brought up was a lot of these are pop-ups are on public town land. Has anybody looked into putting this onto the auditorium site? Put the whole thing over there. Get rid of the traffic that's on at the intersection of Payson and Chestnut. You've got plenty of parking. There's no abutters around there. You're close to the Payson playground lot that could be done as an overflow.
Richard, before you go any
Actually, a
further
lot
though.
right next to the playground that
Richard,
could be-
Richard,
Yes.
it's not the town's responsibility to place establishments where we feel they should be placed. It's the responsibility of us at this board to vet a proposal that a restaurant and a landowner is bringing before us.
Right. But, if it was vetted properly and if
I
all
think the vetting
guidelines-
process has gone very fine. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we're in our third week of vetting this plan and totally open for discussion from everybody.
Right, no, I understand that, and I appreciate that. But there are, it could have been, I think Paige even said it earlier, we didn't think this was an appropriate use when it first came to us.
That was a year ago. That was a year ago.
Different circumstance.
It was a
understand,
different
but-
circumstance.
At that point, she could have said, why don't we look for other alternate sites? Maybe, you can go here, you can go there. She talked about the town common, if it was an open process and your selectmen meeting had something to say, to the general public, we're looking at this kind of a use. Could we have your input? What do you think is a good place to do it? Then maybe 6 months ago.
But again,
we
you're
could have
coming
come up-
back with the fact that we're placing the establishment. That's not our job.
Now, I understand that. Shoveltown could be looking around at other spots. The only reason it's this spot is Doug King owns the land and, you know, he wants to rent it out and make some money. Otherwise, you know, it could go anyplace else. And it could be Shoveltown or it could be any other operation. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, you know, there's a lot of talk about traffic and parking. And the people talk about it like it's a static issue. It's really not. It's a very dynamic issue. What happens is you've got between probably 75 to 100 people sitting at tables. They all show up in cars, 2 to 3 people per car. So you're gonna have 25, 30, 40 cars arriving and sitting down. Those people by regulation can only be there for 90 minutes. But you're gonna have them leaving. You're gonna have cars who are coming to show up. You're gonna get cars driving through the lot. So in this lot, you'll have cars constantly circling. You'll have people stopping so they can make a reservation. Then they're going out. They're gonna try and go to different parking lots. There's constant movement on this site the whole time this is gonna be open. And, you know, cars backing in and out of spots, cars looking for spots. It's just gonna be a very active site. And that intersection is, you know, the primary intersection for the police and the fire, who, you know, I see it all day. They're in and out all day. If they're delayed, then that's gonna be an issue. You know, nobody addressed that point. I mean,
Well, we had the chief of police speaking earlier on that issue, and he
did, and he talked about the last, you know, he looked at incident reports for the last 3 years or whatever it was, which is fine, but that's all out the window now because this has totally changed because there's gonna be 50 to 100 cars in constant motion the whole time this is open. So, you know, situation changes. You know, we asked this question before, has anybody done a study or an outreach to these other breweries who have these on site as to, you know, talk to the police? What are their incidents reports? What are their accident reports? How many DUIs do they have? How many times does the ambulance have to go there? Has anybody done that in Canton or these other places that are open the way this is going to be open? Not a one day, but, you know.
Chief is here. Chief is still here. I'm
What's
sure
that?
he'd be happy to chime in. Chief is still here.
Okay.
Chief Grace.
So, sir, how you doing? So the question that you bring up, a couple of them, very valid. As a resident, as someone who is very concerned about something in essentially your backyard. So in town, when we talk about the liquor regulations and that we have in place in the community, at any time, if we have an establishment that starts to develop a pattern or calls for service, we immediately address that. We have a multitude of liquor licenses in the town of Foxborough that we manage. All of my supervisors have all been trained as liquor control agents, and they have all of the authority to meet and do inspections at any time on any one of these events. So if we are having a spike, for example, of last calls, that is all public record through the ABCC in regards to a business that we can immediately address as it starts to percolate, if that was to happen. This particular owner doesn't have in the last 4 years that history at all. So that's a very good sign. They're not an unknown. They're not a company from the West Coast coming in here. We have no knowledge. We have a pattern in a community very similar to ours. In regards to the traffic flow, I would say the number, I think hundreds of cars moving. I think it's 54 spaces. I don't know specifically how long their time would be. Obviously, the businesses probably know that they stay for 2 hours. They probably come and go at certain times. So is there a flow of traffic on the points of egress? Yes. Are the intersections designed to handle that? Yes. Is the road designed on Chestnut Street to handle that flow? absolutely. And right down the street, we have, at the commercial site, probably more cars coming in and out of that entranceway, which has proven to be very, I'm going to say, safe, with limited amount of accidents. In regards to public safety vehicles, the police department actually doesn't respond from the police department. We're actually out in sectors all the time. And the fire department, I won't speak specifically for them, but with their capabilities of emergency lights, we can get through traffic. We're able to respond to calls for service throughout the town on a game day where we have 86,000 people. So I don't see if this one particular business is going to impact our ability to respond.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's the kind of information that we've been asking for weeks, and
we do that, and we do the research when it comes this way, when through the town's process, and when any permit comes to the police department, all of that gets and looked at. So I apologize if you didn't get that specifically, but that all gets reviewed internally here and what we're up against to make sure that we do not have a situation that you just brought up, because ultimately taking care of our residents and public safety from the police department's perspective is everything. And because I live here too, we want to make sure that any business that operates is safe.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Richard. There's one more person. Does Nick want to speak?
He's all set.
He does not. All right. So at this point, as sort of like a summary, anybody have any input at this stage of the game for thoughts, restrictions, the things we need to take home and talk about? I think a lot of the restrictions I had were already adopted. Parking signs, the 6-foot fence. You talked about the sewerage on the property.
Like Paige said too, all that's incorporated on the site plan, so if we just,
Yeah, that's going to be an important point.
yeah, to whatever motion or whatever we end up deciding to do in accordance with the site plan. I think Leah might have been writing some of our other thoughts and concerns down.
Yeah, I know for me, it's been kind of piecemeal, and I do think, although we've talked about it and this is recorded, I do think, we should put a list together and make sure that we're all on the same page, because, I don't want to put a condition that they can't satisfy, so for kind of both sides.
Well, I think we should publicly state what that list is tonight, put it on paper, and then.
Can I make a suggestion to you all? Is that you've all heard different responses, and you've all collected your own information. What I recommend that you do is put together your own list of issues, send it to us, and we'll tabulate it for you all, and then present it to you at your next meeting, and you can finalize it.
I like that approach.
Yeah. Yeah, you okay with that? Steph, are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Hey, Bill, I have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
I'm assuming I know the answer, but you should never assume. Is there a cost to Shoveltown tying into the sewage, just like any resident or?
Yeah, absolutely. They'll have to pay for that.
Yep. And
Can
the other thing is,
I just clarify this? I'm sorry, Steph, but that's a private sewer system, so actually the town doesn't have anything to do with this.
Right.
So.
is that the one? Is that like a Chestnut?
That's a
Green,
private,
like
but there is a cost to doing it, no question about it.
Okay.
Right.
Right, but I just want to make it clear that this isn't part of the town system.
That's a good point,
This is a
Paige. Thank you
private-
for clarifying that.
Yeah, okay. Yep, and the other thing, is there, does the town get some type of fee for these licenses?
Yes.
The
We
one-day
do.
licenses?
Yes.
We do. So, and it's a good point to raise, Steph, because it's interesting, because if you look at this, it's $50 a day for each license. Now, what's interesting about this is that if they were to do 90 licenses, one-day licenses, that would be about $4,500. Now, the problem with a 1 year, with a beer and wine license for an entire year, you only charge $1,500. So it's something that you should consider under the circumstances, but because obviously the whole idea here is obviously to make this so that it works for both the town as well as the applicant. Now,
Yeah.
we're not trying to gouge anybody by doing this, but by the same token, I think a fair number is probably the $1,500 number, because it's for a longer term, but it's not $4,500 either, which is, I think, a big number.
Yeah, and while we don't want to do that, but I would say, if anybody else coming before us, if it is, the cost is $50 a day, I think we have to stay with whatever the cost is. Not that we want, not for any reason about gouging, but I think if we're gonna use that to allow this to happen, I think you just have to go with what the cost is. And then the Shoveltown people have to make their own decision if,
Well, I think with due respect to your point though, Steph, is that we have not had a situation where it's been more than 30 licenses at this point.
And it's usually been,
Okay.
the last I can remember, it was over an entire calendar year, so it was
Right.
like a 1 day for this Saturday, a 1 day for a month from now Saturday, so I can see the $50 at that point. And I think we should consider, because, if you can get a beer and wine license for $1,500 a year, almost $5,000 to do this is.
But you're also not paying for the full site plan review, and I feel like there's definite, I don't think we should even get into discussing changing the fees as a result, or reducing the fees as a result of this. I mean, it is what it is, when you apply for it.
well, same thing. I mean, my thing, I'm not saying we should do this so it costs Shoveltown any more money, but do we decide, who decides what the cost of that fee is?
You would, the board would, because the board sets that fee.
Set.
And so the fee is set right now at $50 a day. The question is, this is a unique circumstance being proposed to you, whereas you're actually being asked to consider it. I mean, not at this juncture, by the way. It's only, so the only time this would really come up is following the first 30-day issuance. The question is, do you want to continue to charge the same $50 per day following the first 30 days? And the reason I raised the $1,500 for the whole year is because that's the most you ever charge for a beer and wine license.
But to be frank, I don't even want to talk about anything past the 30 days that's in front of us. I don't think that we should get down the slippery slope of talking about, 30 through 60 and 60 through 90.
That's entirely up to the board.
This is on a 30-day basis in hopes that things go correct. But I think we have a lot in front of us, and I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves talking about what we're going to charge down the road if this happens. I just think we have other things to kind of.
Yeah, no, but it's good. It is good stuff to bring up because, I mean, the Shoveltown people are going to make an investment to do this. And so, while I'm somewhat in agreement about us getting involved in, what we're going to charge down the road or not, I'm sure it's probably a fair question for them, just because it's an investment they're going to make for this to happen.
Well,
So,
I can tell you it was a question they raised to us and one that I was going to raise with the board. So I just want you to be aware of it.
And the only last thing, just while all the Shea Lane people are looks like most of them are still here. I can only speak for myself as a board member. We've taken everything you guys, or I have taken everything you guys have said very seriously. And I would just want you guys to know that, sometimes, unfortunately, that's a commercial piece of property. And while I don't want any resident to have to deal with certain issues, sometimes, it's like if you buy your house next to the stadium and then you're mad because there's traffic or so. I just want you guys to know is that I take it very seriously, but you also have to look at what some of the rules are and what businesses are allowed to do. So when the decision's made, one way or the other, I just want you guys to realize that sometimes you just have to go with what is put in front of you, what is allowed. We can't just pick and choose, the Shoveltown people, in all fairness to them, they go through a process. And if we're told as a board that this is allowed, we can't just say no. you know, we would have people suing the town and the board for, you know, we can't pick and choose who's gonna come in. So I just wanna make that clear so you guys all know. For me, this is, you know, I'm taking it all in, and I wanna make the best decision for everybody, including the residents. I just wanted to make that pretty clear.
Kind of follow up with something she just said.
Yeah.
I mean, just to kind of echo something Steph said, we see you, we know you have your hand up. You know, if I think back on my last 3 years on the board, I would say this is one of the issues that we've probably spent the most time on, you know, talking to residents, talking to Bill, talking to town council, talking to the planning board. You know, I know Ron and I have had conversations. And I do think it has been a really great conversation. So I want to kind of commend the residents, you know, this board, the staff. I feel like everyone has been very respectful in kind of working together and understanding that, you know, these sometimes can be tough decisions, and no matter what decision we make, there's always going to be people, you know, on both sides of it. And I think everyone's just kind of heard each other and worked together pretty well. And I just want to say thank you, you know, to everyone involved, especially the neighbors. I feel like it's been a pretty good tone.
I got a question for Frank. You're still with us, correct?
Yes, I am.
Frank, time frame wise for you to be up and going Memorial Day, how much lead time do you need?
We're discussing that now. I mean, it's a challenge at this point. We're within the window for the stuff we have to do, the construction, the connection, the permitting. Everything is really coming up to be able to open, you know, May 15th. And we kind of need to capture those days. We need to be up and running in the best days of the summer to make this, you know, a viable opportunity for us. I would also say that one of the concerns that we have is the reissuance of the licensing. I'd like to get some kind of commitment on the reissuing of the license, you know, based on some performance parameters that are measurable and that we can stick to going forward. Because if we don't have those, and you know, we have to, for whatever reason, somebody decides they're having a bad day or something, and then they don't want to reissue a license to us. We've invested, you know, this isn't profitable in 30 days. It doesn't even come close. We'll be lucky, you know, to get profitability in 60 days.
And staffing, we have to staff up for this with the proper staff.
Yeah.
And
that's hiring, that's right, that's commitment to hiring people, and then if in 30 days, we'd have to let them go. And we are planning on hiring as many people as we can from Foxborough.
Valid point.
I just think this is something that's never been done before. So I think, while we understand that, guys, I think you have to understand that we also have to be, you know, we have to do the right thing, where this is typically a 30-day license. You know, we're looking at how we can be creative and expand it on, but I think you also have to understand the position we're in, and I just don't think that we're going to, you know, at least I'm not going to, you know, commit to something beyond the 30 days. I think everyone's intent is, you know, if things work out well, that's where we go.
And that's what I was gonna say too. I think if we issue that first one, as long as everything's going good, I mean, I won't be on the board then, but I don't see any reason, you know, we've never pulled a license from anybody really.
Short of anything egregious.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be someone's in a bad mood, you know, we're a professional board of 5 people, so, you know, I don't think that would happen, Frank.
Richard.
You know, Richard, I'm going to give you one more shot, but something that hasn't been said, and keep it quick, please.
I will. I have one comment, one question. First comment is that if you look at the town website and go to the zoning map, that parcel is R15 zoning, it's residential. Mr. Buckley even said that it was planned for 3 units. So to say that it's a commercial lot really isn't correct. We bought into a neighborhood that was supposed to have housing on it, not this kind of a use. I don't want to belabor that point. I just wanted to make it. The second question I have is, what is the process for making a complaint, resolving a complaint in timely fashion? Could that be addressed as part of your documents that you put together?
Well,
I mean, we can make a complaint now which doesn't get settled for 60 days. You know, that doesn't really help anybody.
Well, any complaint would go to any appropriate board. Noise would go to the building inspector. Any health complaints would go to the health inspector. Any traffic complaints would go to police. Any pour or alcohol complaints would come to us. That would just be the normal process. Paige, I saw. Go ahead.
Is there a form that would be built out so that we could see that to know who to call?
But that's just normal protocol, Richard, in the community, in any town.
They could call your office and you could always direct them if you
That's
want.
right. There you go.
Exactly right.
You could always call, go ahead, Paige. Paige?
No, I'm waiting my turn to follow. I don't need to get into this. I was moving on back to Leah's point and Steph's other point.
No, absolutely.
Okay, you ready for that? Okay, so
Yeah.
So all that aside, complaints, I agree. Call Bill Keegan's office or call the building commissioner, and that's how you handle it. It will get addressed. All of us at Town Hall are actually quite committed to, like Chief Grace said, we all work really hard. We don't try to do anything underhanded or whatnot. So I'll just say that this has all been above board and really looking at the best interest of the community. And with respect to the concerns, I understand. So I have my economic development hat back on again. And I just want to speak to you from the concerns of a business. You know, right now, there's a lot of, Bill Buckley costs money sitting here, plans are being developed. There's a lot of things being done. I'm not saying we owe them anything, but just understanding that I get that this is not normal and that this is outside the box. But again, we are in a pandemic. We're dealing with a special summer. This is going to be a one-time summer. This is not something we're going to be talking about again next year. This is, I hope, knock on wood, the pandemic ends or we don't get another one. But my point being is we are in extraordinary circumstances and this is outside the box. And I agree with that. But so with respect to the fee, $4,500 compared to $1,500, that's prohibitive. And I don't know that's a deal breaker. And maybe you don't care, but from an economic development perspective, it's just frustrating. And then same with the timing, how are these guys going to go ahead and make business decisions if they feel like the rug can be pulled under them 30 days? If Mr. DeCoste complains enough every day, is that sufficient? So that's why I say that, is it, maybe we do have performance standards like Chris just mentioned, if there aren't any, any substantive complaints or some sort of process to measure, because everything's subjective. And, Mr. DeCoste might never like this project, and that's understandable. I might feel the same way if I were him. But that said, let's think of this as, also beneficial to the community. We're not doing this to hurt the community. We're doing this to help give a place for the people to gather. I see a lot of people walking there, not just driving there. And so things like $4,500 here and there and a 30-day with a risk of a business being shut down without any due process. If I were them, I would walk away, honestly. So I'm just giving that economic development hat because I wear it 50% of the time.
I don't think anyone said that we'd shut it down within any due process. It's like if this is really not going well is kind of the only thing that we've said.
I know it's so subjective. You have to grant 30 new permits. So it's not even like you have to remove a permit. It's like you're actually having to grant new ones. So that's why it just seems like, and I'm not saying you can do anything different than that now. I'm just saying that's why maybe performance standards or some sort of measuring so that everyone has an understanding of what to try to achieve as opposed to just frivolous subjective things that can happen. We all might look at things differently, and I don't want Mr. DeCoste upset all the time and then have, this person think it's nothing. Like, how do we measure this?
I love performance standards. Draft them at work all the time. Paige, we'll come up with something.
So I think you're right, Paige, but I think probably everybody from Shoveltown, again, going to speak for myself. I'm not going to, it would have to, if this goes through and everybody's happy, it would have to be something really not working. Nobody is going to, I can't see us ever just pulling the rug out for them because of, one little complaint here, complaint here. This is either gonna work and we're gonna know it's working or it's not, And I mean, while we can't give them a guarantee, I think this board, if we have that many concerns, then we shouldn't proceed. And we shouldn't let these people make an investment like that and then worry about, if we give them a go-ahead, a lot of our questions have been answered. For me, I feel like the right people are answering the questions, and I could just say I would never, just because we get a couple of complaints, that we're gonna take a business and this is also, a business that's going to be coming into our community. We know that, eventually, and we don't want, them to have bad feelings or think that they're gonna come before a board that's gonna say, oh, we don't care, you made this investment, we got a couple of complaints about noise, you're all done. We're not gonna, I don't think we would ever do that. And I'm saying this to you, Paige, I see you nodding. I guess I'm saying it for the Shoveltown people. We're not gonna let you guys come in, make this investment and then say, oh, sorry. It would have to be that it's really not working, and that's up to you guys and the people in our community. So if something isn't working, if the traffic's a little funny, then we get Chief Grace involved and he'll help you guys, The other stuff, I think the stuff that we would normally worry about giving a license to somebody, I don't think we're gonna have to worry about. You guys have a clean record in Easton, Frank said, I think you said, all, which I knew all your employees would be tip certified, and that's what a good business would do. And all the rules about over-serving, because those are the things that would hurt you. I don't see any of that coming into play here. It'd be a fluke thing based on your record. So we can't guarantee the other stuff, but, I think if we're satisfied with all the concerns we had, this will probably be a great project. And if we have to tweak things along the way, I can't see us just saying, oh, sorry, made a big investment, we're yanking it.
Thank you, Steph. Bill?
Yeah.
So
Mr. We're a board that would take this serious.
Thank you, Steph.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I heard Paige correctly, I think what she was insinuating or suggesting is that ultimately this board maintains full control over this license. So, in other words, if in fact you saw a problem after 20 days, or 30 days, or 40 days, or 50 days, you could haul them in and say, look, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. If it was such an egregious situation, you could do that after the 10th license was issued. You still have that authority. So I think what they're suggesting, what Paige is suggesting is that, that we need to show them a level of commitment too, as well. And just as they're making a level of commitment in terms of investment, I think it's a two-way street in that respect. I don't think anybody's asking to do anything above and beyond. I think we're just looking to be creative, given the difficult challenge that we're faced with right now.
But I think we have given a level of commitment that we've said, this is different, we're willing to talk about it. If everything goes good, we'll be back here. I don't know what other level of commitment you want us to give besides approving a 90-day licenses, which I don't think is the right thing to do.
All I'm suggesting is that, I don't know what the right answer is, but I do think it's something that it's worthy of further consideration because of that, because of the reason I just stated.
I already heard from Steph. I've heard, seems like to me we are committed or potentially committing to the Memorial Day through Halloween. We've looked ahead, we've calculated the days, calculated the licenses, worked with you with the managerial changes for the different licenses, come up with plans to mitigate the area, mitigate the neighbors' issues. I think there is a commitment on the Board of Selectmen side, if we do go forward with this project, to go forward with this project. In my mind, something short of something catastrophic, I don't foresee any issues. Are there going to potentially be complaints that need to be heard and dealt with? Probably. But I don't think anything's going to be huge that we all can't discuss and figure out.
I mean, you can't even apply for what you're asking for right now. So I think, I mean, maybe it's almost 10 o'clock, maybe we can, kind of come up with a plan
Why can't
to.
they apply?
What?
When you said they can't even apply for what they're asking for.
They need to, they need to do the 30-day and then another 30-day with the new manager,
It's all in there.
We have all of it in here. I mean, theoretically,
We could
we
approve it
could
all tonight.
approve all of it tonight.
Yeah.
All the licenses are in there. That's why I just
But we
wanted
could
to-
only approve 30 at a time.
Well, they've applied that way with 30 each, with 30 different individuals,
Right,
with three different individuals.
right. But I
It's,
thought,
but again, under normal circumstances, you're right. With 30 days, that's the most we've ever done for anyone in a year. But this is again a situation where they've applied in a different way.
Yeah, so it's different
it's a
people
different- it's a
within
different
Shelter
Right, and who
Town.
even knows what happens with COVID? I mean, honestly, the governor could rescind the order in July,
But then they would still
then
have
they'd still have
60
They'd
days.
have 60 days, right, yeah.
So that would get them probably to September.
Yeah.
I mean, the one way to do it, I mean, I get exactly where Paige with her economic development hat is coming from, and Frank, the investment they're making before they even open is gonna be staggering. Why couldn't we approve all 3 licenses, with 30-day check-ins,
30-day reviews.
30-day reviews or something like that, contingent upon, successful operation for the past 30 days.
which would be with any license we approve anyway.
Right.
Be it Patriots Place or downtown or any liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring anybody in with a violation at any time.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're approving this tonight anyways, because we have to get everything in order, so, maybe we all give our kind of thoughts individually on that, but I think, I completely understand both sides of this. But I think you guys have to kind of understand our perspective too, and if you don't want to take, I think what you're asking for comes along with the territory of what we're saying, if you don't want to, have, the commitment on your side, then apply for a different type of license, The license that you're applying for here is a little bit different.
Can I make a suggestion? Because originally, when I walked in the door at 6:30, I mean, I was figuring one way or the other, we're voting on this tonight. Can we table this till our next meeting, but have a special meeting next week?
I don't have a meeting next week.
She's not here next week.
Because the thing is,
We've already got town meeting coming up, I just don't want to.
but you heard them, I mean, if, our next meeting is the 27th, so that gives them barely a month to pull all this together. So how fair is that to a new business that wants to come into town and invest a lot of money, and has already invested a lot of money?
I mean, we
And,
could
and I'm
even-
not saying, let's give it to them, but we need to give them a decision, yes or no, sooner rather than later, is what
But
I'm
I think
saying.
in fairness to us, then a list of conditions in an organized manner. And I'm not saying this about anyone, but there's there's 19 documents in board docs with different conditions from different departments.
May I make a suggestion on what the planning board does? Sorry to interrupt, but just to try. So oftentimes the board can vote something and then it's subject to developing a decision. So what you could do is take a vote tonight and then, we could all do that list and then you basically affirm it at the next meeting, but at least this group has, a decision one way or another. So you're not signing anything without reviewing it, but you're basically making a decision and then we'll formalize it and then you'd formally sign it at your next meeting. But that gives them a little bit more to bank on, shall we say, as they move forward.
I like that.
Paige, that was outstanding. I just heard 3 I likes that, and we just couldn't hear Steph, that's all.
Well, I do like that, but I'll have a little spin to it. For myself, I don't feel comfortable with issuing all 3 90-day license there was something I think that Chris said we could do, or Bill might have said we could just come back if there's a violation. Here's the thing, there may not be a violation, but we might not think it's working. Now, with that being said, like I said, they have to take a leap. People make these decisions in business all the time. So either they're gonna decide it's worth it or not worth it. But the problem is, we can't turn around, in order to take that license away, if you're saying that it has to be a violation, us just coming and saying, oh, I don't think it's working, I don't really know that's a violation. So I would only feel comfortable with voting tonight on the first 30 licenses, the 30-day licenses. And then once they're open, you know, and then I would be okay with issuing the next two in one group. You know, once we see things are going good. I just don't know that that if it's not going well, it's an actual violation of their license. And that's where I would have the problem with, maybe we can't just, you know, pull the license if you're looking for a violation. Now, with that being said, I've already said, you know, if this goes forward, I'm not going to be nitpicky. You know, unfortunately, if the residents have, you know, a noise, whatever, then it gets addressed, and someone comes to Shoveltown and say, hey, listen, we're getting a couple of complaints. What can we do about it? You know, but the thing is, if it's in, for me, if it's in, I'm using the word code, if it's in the code of that being a commercial piece of property and a business being able to operate, if our standard is, I think it's, might have said 52 decibels or 62 decibels, and that's what it is, then I think they're not in violation. And so
Mr. Chairman, there is a difference here on this.
So be it. We have to go by what the regulations are that are put in front of us, unfortunately.
Thank you, Steph. Bill?
So Steph.
Hold on, Steph. Steph, hold on.
So Steph, I think you're thinking this more of a traditional alcohol license wherein that if it's not a specific violation of the town's rules and regulations, that it would be something that the board would then hold a hearing and then conduct a disciplinary hearing and then issue the decision, and then that will be appealable to the ABCC. This is not that situation. This is the board has complete control over one-day licenses. It is not an appealable action to the ABCC. So
okay.
just so you know that. I mean, so it's a different process. So in the event that if you say, for instance, that this is not going well, the board could meet with them and say, look, guys, you know, we've tried this for 30 days and we've got all kinds of issues that we have and we don't think we can resolve it. You know, I think we're not gonna go any further with the licenses, and that's the end of it. And the board would be well within its rights to do that. So I think it's a different process. It's not your standard alcohol process in that regard. It is a one-day alcohol license that provides the town with full and complete authority in that regard.
I heard someone say violation, so that's what kind of, you know, if there's a violation, that's what kind of put me down that path. I didn't realize.
Okay, thank you. Paige, how would you word that, like you said, like you usually do in planning board?
Let's see. It would be something to the, you know, you'd make a motion to approve, whether it's the 30 days or whatever that is, subject to a decision or a list of conditions or a license, whatever terminology is appropriate, to be developed and, you know, reviewed by the board for signature at the next meeting. Something more elegant than that, but basically making a decision that you're sort of doing at this meeting, and then making sure it's clear that that'll be affirmed through a written decision that you'll be able to review and see, and with the applicant prior to the meeting, the next meeting.
And that would be any conditions that we put together.
Yeah, and typically we would include like a list of exhibits, you know, it'll be a headache a bit, like, because Leah said, there's so many, but it's always helpful for us to have a full documentation of what's included in the decision for reference, and then all the conditions with it. And then that way it's crystal clear what everybody's working from.
I'm very comfortable with that.
So the motion would be.
Clarification?
Sure.
Can I just get a clarification? Would those conditions include anything new that we haven't talked about, or are they just the conditions that we've already discussed?
I wouldn't see anything new at all. Everything that's already been discussed, a lot of it's already, you know, Bill Buckley already has it on your site plan, things that have been developed, so I wouldn't anticipate anything new.
I wouldn't anticipate that either. I think if there is anything, we would certainly discuss it with you fully before it was included in the document.
I just wanted to make sure, just wanted to get the
Yeah,
clarification.
and we've learned the hard way through the planning board that we find it is always beneficial to let, to share publicly a draft like that, because, a lot of times in the planning board decision, it's very frustrating if you put a condition out there and then it's appealed. And then that just makes it difficult for everyone. And that's not the instance here, but given the transparency under which we're working and all that, it just seems like it would make sense for everybody to see it, everybody understand what they're going into, and you can resolve some of that if it comes up later, in 2 weeks.
Board comfortable with that?
I am.
Yeah, you know something, what about, do we need to, I know there was some discussion about not doing entertainment on Thursday night. Is that something we want to?
That would be one of the conditions.
So Frank, would you still be okay with that?
I think Leah changed that because when it was brought to light that we don't have a deadline for any outdoor dining anywhere else in town, it just seems a little arbitrary, but I don't know, Leah, did you?
Yeah, if anything, I would be more apt to close earlier on a Thursday night than put an entertainment condition on there, but I don't think that
Maybe
that's to get into.
an hour earlier or something? Or-
Yeah, I mean, I personally
That's a
think
condition, though.
Yeah.
That's a condition. Let's hold off on that for now.
So the motion would be that the board, and you're gonna have to help me with this because I don't know how the board wants to word this, but it was,
Personally, to get started,
Okay.
I would do all 90 days.
okay. So it would be
The three
30.
separate-
It'd be three,
Because there are going to be,
it would be three 30-day licenses under three separate applicants.
But I have said, I will say, I have said from the get-go to everyone that I've talked to, I think we should approve this 30 days at a time. And we just had the discussion that, our intent obviously is to have this continue. But me personally, if we're gonna vote on 90 days,
Well, let me just, not to interrupt you, there are three separate licenses, so we couldn't vote all of them in one anyways.
well, I mean, voting on all three tonight,
Yeah, yeah.
I've kind of said,
I actually
since
think-
the first time, I think you and I even talked about the switching from farmer's pours to this, I will probably hold firm on that. So that may change my decision if it's 30 versus doing all three.
Well, I think Steph's idea was the best, we start out with a 30. I think everybody knows our intent, as long as things are
Yes.
going good.
Do
And
the-
then the
do
next
the other
one,
two.
do the other two. At that point,
Sort of like a 30-day trial.
Yeah, I'm
You more
completely
comfortable
comfortable
with
with that,
Okay.
not getting into the other licenses tonight.
So the motion would be to approve to conditionally approve the 31-day licenses.
Starting
for-
Memorial Day.
Starting Memorial Day. And Frank, I think you referred to May 15th at one point, but it's actually May 30th, right? I mean,
27th,
May
my
27th.
daughter's birthday. so-
May 27th, okay. Beginning on May 27th, 2021, to Shoveltown Brewery for operation at 25 Chestnut Street in Foxborough, subject to the conditions to be agreed upon by the board at their subsequent meeting on April 27th.
Second.
so move second. Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes.
So we would do the same thing with the common vic license?
Yes. So, and I would say, note that, that the common vic license is subject to any kind of conditions as well. So if there are conditions that board members, that were discussed during the meeting tonight or previously, then those conditions would be identified and attached to that license as well. So the motion would be to approve 30, to approve a common victual license for Shoveltown Brewery to be utilized at 25 Chestnut Street in Foxborough, beginning on May 27th, 2021, and through I think it's what, Halloween weekend, which would be the 31st,
31st.
10/31, Frank, is that?
That's correct. That's correct,
Through
yes.
10/31/2020,
Inclusive of 1031.
inclusive of 10/31/2021.
So it's just a one-year license. It doesn't have to be a specific thing.
Right, but I think in this case, we're gonna make it specific because it is a unique situation, so we can just do it for that. You don't wanna make it a one-year license in this instance.
Would we put the same caveat at the end?
Yes, that they're subject to the conditions as agreed to by the board at your April 27th meeting.
Can we do the common vic and the entertainment all in one motion there?
You don't like to mix them together?
Yeah, we
I don't think, it's not a good idea to mix them, but I'm sorry to do that, but.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
And then the final would be the 7-day entertainment license, that the board would conditionally approve a 7-day entertainment license for Shoveltown Brewery for use at 25 Chestnut Street in Foxborough, beginning on May 27th, 2021, through and including October 31st, 2021, subject to the conditions provided to the board, agreed to by the board at the April 27th meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Hey,
Ed, yes.
hey, can Bill make these motions?
No,
He told them, I approved them, Chris seconded them.
yes. I'm just.
He's not making the motion.
I'm not making the motions.
All I can hear is Bill saying them, and then I can hear Chris seconding them.
I'm providing the wording to the chairman.
Someone said so moved, Steph.
So moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I can't make the motion, obviously, Stephanie, so it's just, I'm just giving him the wording, that's all.
Yeah.
Just waiting on your approval, Steph.
Stephanie, yes.
All right.
Okay.
Paige, that was a Solomon-type act you just performed. Great job. Thank you very much. I hope, Frank, that helps.
Yeah, the only outstanding question I have is the fee. Is there an opportunity to address the fee for the follow-on?
Well, it wouldn't be an issue anyways in the first 30 licenses anyways, Frank, because it would still be the same price.
Yeah,
So the only issue
Well, I
would be.
think we'll have
Let's
to
give
address
them-
it the next
And
meeting.
I will say, every restaurant is struggling to give a break to a temporary outdoor thing when all of our other restaurants, this is the type of application you're applying for. This is the fee. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't necessarily want to entertain changing licenses now for this project. I just don't think I see both sides of it.
But right, at the same time, no other establishment has had to pay more than $1,500.
I think, well, I mean, talk about bending over backwards. I think if we're going to start changing the fees, I just don't think it's a good precedent to set.
I would agree. And not to gouge any other business. I just, at this point, I don't feel comfortable making a decision tonight about changing a fee.
And this is the first we're hearing about it. We've never talked the
Right,
fees
fair
before.
enough.
Yeah.
So in fairness, Frank, to your point, I think it's a question you have to raise with the board at the next meeting.
And, you know, the town has probably had a lot of costs and attorney fees. I'd be curious what we've spent too, you know, on this from the other side. So, you know, I think we're all trying to work together to do this, but I think, you know, trying to change the fees to me is not, in my opinion, not a good look.
But to answer your question, Frank, we'll discuss it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and not to beat a dead horse, but several other communities address the fees when it's a longer duration license. But okay, I'll rest there.
Thank you.
I just have one comment. The town of Foxborough does get a meal and beverage tax, right?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah, just keep that in mind too.
We do from every restaurant.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Well,
James.
and my only thing about the fees would be too, like
Well, we're
like
gonna,
I said,
Steph, we're gonna discuss,
we want to help out the restaurants, but our town has been hurt in COVID as well. So it's almost, I'm not saying to take advantage of anybody, but the fees are what the fees are. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't we couldn't talk about it and change it, but, you know, our town has taken a hurt just like every other business. So if this is, the fees are what the fees are and somebody wants to come in and do business in town.
The fair way the fair way to approach this would be to look at what other towns have done in this, and then let the board decide that.
And we can
based
do
on that.
some research. Okay, we're gonna move on. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
How quick can you get through the rest?
I'm gonna
We could
try and
skip,
fly
we could
through
skip Mike. could
We only have a
skip,
$9.4 million bond issue
Yeah,
to
let's-
approve. But fortunately, so the next one is the bond issue. So you do have a motion, Ed, that's been provided to you by bond counsel. And fortunately, we found out today we don't have to read the full text of it, which is great, because that's about a 2-page text. So it's a lot easier for you to read just what they provided for you. So if you would, Red, just a brief note for the public should hear this, that because we have a AAA bond rating, we received a 1.54% interest rate on these bonds. That saves the ratepayers hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of the issuance. So that's a significant accomplishment by the community. So I think it shouldn't be overlooked, but it's really a very, very important achievement by the community to receive that rate. So that's really, really low price for money for the town to borrow for a very significant water project.
And we just got updated with our triple bond rating.
We got confirmed for the 3rd time about our AAA bond rating, so which is significant. That was mentioned in the sale itself as being a very significant accomplishment as well.
All right, Ed?
Motion to approve the sale of the town's April 2021 general obligation water bonds and to adopt the votes prepared by Locke and Lord as bond counsel to the town in connection with the bond sale.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes?
Leah, yes?
Mark, yes?
Ed, yes?
Stephanie, yes?
Thank you.
Now, you do have a number of documents to sign tonight, so you do have to do that. I can't get you past that one, unfortunately.
Start.
Mike?
Except this time.
Okay, I have a number of things, but being 10:15, I'm gonna just go with 3 quick ones. So the town manager's evaluation, I have sent to you about 30 minutes before this meeting. It incorporated the changes that the board discussed last time. It's a fillable PDF. You know, I'm gonna send this to Bill to start filling out, but if there are any concerns or questions, you know, I'd be open to them either now or individually during the week. But I just want to give him a chance to at least start filling out, because we know what the goals are. You know, he can at least start filling out the narrative so that hopefully by April 23rd, he can have something to you. Is that a fair timeline, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay. And then
4 days after that, just saying. Just kidding.
and then I would look to get the evaluations back from the board 2 weeks later, which would be May 7th. I know there was some discussion about who they come back to and all that. I'm prepared to discuss that, but I'm also happy to defer that to next time, just knowing that they're going to come back to Human Resources by May 7th, if that's acceptable with the board.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for your work on that.
Certainly. Okay, next thing is the applicant tracking system went live, soft opening on Friday. It's fully open on Monday, and that's where folks can see what jobs are open, and they can apply fully online, and then I can route them to the interview team, completely, through the internet. And I think this is going to be a great efficiency that we're getting back to. If anyone wants to see that, it's the top link on the Human Resources page of the town website. And later this week, we'll also put that link on the front page of the home page.
Will that auto post out to the mainstream sites now, like the old site used to do?
Yes, we have the capability to do that. It's already going out to Indeed, and we have the capability to go out to other mainstream sites as well. Okay, and the personnel and policy guidebook that that Bill, myself, our entire staff have been working on is complete in draft form and will be going to the personnel board soon. We tried to get it there this week, but it'll probably be in 2 weeks' time. And then after that, they have received it. They'll be sending suggestions, questions, etc. To me. We'll work on that, and then we'll bring it back to this board after the personnel board has had a chance to take a look at it. And then the last thing I'll touch on is that we are continuing with the Darkness to Light training, and we had one this afternoon, remote training, virtual training. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Mike. Bill?
All right, I had a relatively long list, but I'm going to try and shorten it as much as I can. Town committee handbook that we've updated is almost ready for prime time, and we'll give it to the board for your review. We should have that to you by within the next week or so. The employee handbook, as Mike noted, is ready for prime time. That's going to personnel board for review, and then it'll be before you for your final consideration. But we are having some internal discussions right now about how we can effectively reopen Foxboro officially. And we're starting to get people more re-engaged in the community, so to speak. So we're trying to figure out ways to do that effectively, because we know that mental health is a major concern to a lot of people. We want to try and get them involved as much as we can. The elections are coming up on May 3rd, 2021. So if you, it's not going to be a big debatable election this year, but we still want to remind people that it's important to get out and vote. Town meeting's on May 10th. Just a reminder that we 7:30 at the high school. And town reports will be available at that time. We have 2 intern possibilities, one working in planning, one working in our office. There's no cost associated with these interns. These are young folks that are currently in college looking to try and get some experience and some resume information that they can put on their resumes when they move on. So we're looking forward to working with them. It's going to be sort of a hybrid model with some they can work through Zoom, as well as actually spend some limited time in the office and work with us on some projects. So that's going to be helpful. Still waiting guidance from the federal government on the American Recovery Plan money. We have a presentation that's going to be presented to you on the 27th at your next meeting relative to how we get the county money back. Because it's about $3.5 million at stake, and it's really important that we get a good, firm message to the county government to make sure that they are going to be issuing that money to the various cities and towns, and 28 cities and towns in Norfolk County. And last but not least, the summer ribbon cutting will be on Friday at 11 a.m. at the facility, and I know that those that can make it will make it. So and those that can't, we'll try and get you up there at some point so you can see it firsthand, because it is something special, and we're actually drawing attention from a number of communities now who might want to join us. So it's going to continue to grow. So the plant has been seeded, and the building is now open. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Anything for a selectmen's update?
The only thing I was going to suggest is, we do have a meeting the night after town meeting, and it is a long warrant. So maybe reserving agenda items for that meeting in case town meeting does go the next night, just a thought. I mean, I would love to just not have a meeting that week if we could do it, where we're gonna be at town meeting the night before, but I don't know what's pressing, and
I don't think we'll know for another
Yeah.
couple of weeks if anything's going to be pressing.
well, if it's not, keep it in mind.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully
It's a
I
good
would,
point.
No, I see what
I
you're
would
saying.
love to not,
Hey, you signed up for this gig. We
No,
approved
it's-
the calendar.
the town meeting, there's a good chance this one, could go 2 nights, you never know.
Yeah, I don't anticipate that's going to be the case, but it's a fair point.
Yeah, we
I
could be
mean,
there till 10:30 again, and,
Yeah.
do we wanna do another late night the
Yeah,
next night?
exactly.
We'll keep it light.
Try and keep it light.
Okay.
I don't think anybody will object to that.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Fair point.
All right. Action items?
Motion to accept the $10,000 from CarMax LLC for the Council on Aging and Human Services Department to enhance programs and services.
I'm going to second it, and under discussion, that is a huge gift? Like, what's the backstory on that?
I believe that they were just looking to do some good in the community and they donated it, so I think $5,000 went to Mark February, so he'll be the best person to talk to about it. I know he's away, but he'll be able to give you the full story, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, I've never approved a gift that large for the Council on Aging, so that's like, that's awesome. So I definitely wouldn't mind hearing the Paul Harvey rest of the story on how, why, and what.
I know he told me, but I can't recall exactly right now, so I apologize for that.
You're at that age.
My brain is fried just like yours right now, so sorry about that.
Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes.
Mark, yes.
Ed, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Motion to approve tuition reimbursement of $13,026 for Detective Mark Bonenberger.
Correction there, it's 1,300, not 13,000.
I'm sorry, $1,300.
Second.
And he would have.
We would have ejected that one, yeah.
That $10,000 was about to be gone.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes.
Mark, yes.
Ed, yes.
Steph?
Stephanie, yes.
Thank you.
Motion to authorize Southeastern apply $37,241 from ESSER 2 grant towards fiscal year 2022 Town of Foxborough share of operating expenses and reduce the town's assessment accordingly.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So Jim, just so everybody knows, this will actually reduce our cost to the school for next year, next fiscal year.
And is this a one-time COVID type money?
Yeah, this is federal money that came in to offset their operating costs.
Because of COVID?
Because of COVID, right.
Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes.
Mark, yes.
Ed, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Motion to approve the Board of Selectmen March 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes.
Mark, yes.
Ed, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Motion to approve the 2021 automatic amusement license for Normandy Farms Campground LLC.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes.
Mark, yes.
Ed, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Motion to approve a Hackney license renewal for Maurice Barcacci.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes.
Mark, yes.
Ed, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
And finally, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris, yes.
Leah, yes.
Mark, yes.
Ed, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to, I stayed on because of the awkwardness of Zoom, but I just wanted to thank the board for their time and effort that they put in on the Shoveltown Brewery pop-up.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank, I appreciate it.
Good night.
Thanks, Frank.